Press start.
I'm looking forward to this because I haven't played a lot of games, so I'm looking forward to hearing about, especially Jeff, you played a bunch. Kyle, you dove into Pokemon and heard about that one. I just haven't had a chance to game as much. I'm looking forward to it. I know I will have a chance to. It's one of those things where I know it balances out. So I think back to earlier this year when I was pouring in like dozens of hours a week into Elden Ring, for example. And I know, Jeff, you were busy in the studio and you were doing shows and you were watching movies and you're like, I just didn't have as much time to game. And I remember like that pendulum just kind of shifts from time to time, you know?
Yeah.
So,
big time.
so I am excited to have you guys carry the gaming load for us this week. Dan, I don't know, you probably have had some time to game, but you're kind of
Tim. I will carry that
was
load
not
for
gonna
you
say
real
anything.
good. I will carry that load for you.
dude. I just
God,
saw
me
the
too.
bloopers in It's Always Sunny when they're trying to do the prison scene, and he's like,
Oh,
"We'll come
jeez.
with our butts filled for you, so filled for you," and they can't get through the scene.
So cool.
I don't know how shows like that, how they get through anything. I don't know how they.
I honestly don't either.
Well, especially because they get to ad lib so much.
Sure.
And they've said on the
And
podcast
just-
like their goal is to make each other break. Like they want to make each other break.
So
'cause
just
that-
throwing in one extra descriptor, like that's enough to just like totally
Yeah.
make you crumble, you know?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
their guest they had recently was a guy. I think we talked about this already. He was just reading.
I remember this.
He was just reading the resume, and they didn't know he was going to do that. And the resume was so stupid. Like from 2006 to 2008, odd jobs here and there. And he would like look at them and wait, and they just died laughing because they had no idea what the resume was going to say.
Yeah, that's the thing. They handed the actor a prop, and
Yeah.
he just read it.
He just read it.
And they were basically reacting.
Sometimes it's
in
just
real
how
time.
you deliver the lines.
Or
you know,
it's just even eye contact can set you off,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah,
if you're
yeah.
just like, because if you
Yeah.
know the goal is that they're trying to break you, like
Oh man.
that can be
That's
enough.
what
You just-
happened in
you
the,
get in your own way, you know.
That's what happened in The Office a lot with Steve Carell and John Krasinski.
Yes.
Steve would give him this look in the eyes, and John
Yep.
would be like, "I can't look at you because I'm
Dude,
gonna laugh."
Krasinski could not hold it together. Like he's like
Yeah.
the
I
most
know.
bloopers, right? Like most of the
Yeah,
bloopers
he's in
are
most of them.
Krasinski.
Yeah.
He's the
Yeah.
Jimmy Fallon of The Office. That's what you're trying to say.
hey, how dare you? How dare you?
So good, so good. Oh my god, so good.
Dude, that time when Michael Scott wanted to carpool to New York, and Jim just couldn't get through that scene because he would go right to his ear and be like, "So you want to carpool? You guys want to take a
Yeah.
carpool to you?" Jim, he could not.
The early
It's
bird gets
Carell
the worm.
delivery. It's the
The early worm gets the worm. And he's like, so there's two worms?
Or when Dwight couldn't get through the penis announcement about
Yep,
Phyllis
yep, yep.
getting flashed. Oh
Yep.
man. I think
Penises
sometimes
on the board.
bloopers for some of my favorite shows end up being things I watch way more than the episodes themselves. Sometimes it just depends, but
Yeah.
I love a good blooper reel, man. I really do.
You know who they didn't really fully take advantage of? And I can't think of the actor's name, is Gabe on The Office.
Zach Woods. He's on
Oh.
Avenue
Yeah.
5.
Like there's
Right.
a blooper of him, like where there's him, Dwight, and Jim in that like kind of middle room there, and he's talking about like I don't even remember what it
Yeah,
is
it's
that
like
he's saying.
it's like the middle break room. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he's talking. It's the one where like Dwight's like trying to get jacked up. It's that episode where they're gonna work
and,
out or
and
whatever.
Zach Woods is just making stuff up.
He's just saying all this stuff that doesn't even end
Right.
up on the show. It's just completely, and like the both of them just like cannot handle it like at all. Like John Krasinski is just like wheezing in the back. It's good stuff. I love bloopers. Big fan of bloopers.
Big
Same
fan.
Big fan.
Because it's already a funny scene I'm familiar with, and you get to see actors that you really admire and think are funny, but even they're laughing.
Yeah.
So it makes me laugh so hard. I just love it.
Yeah.
Love it. So yeah, we'll talk about stuff we're watching, of course, later too. Stuff we're playing. Let's just jump right into it. The main release this week, I think, even though there's been several interesting games out this week, has to be Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. At least as far as like the industry and culture goes, that's the most significant release, I would say. So I haven't played it. I've only read about it, but I have strong opinions because of what I read. That's how the internet works. And that's how I'm going to operate.
Oh well, then Tim, go ahead, take the
I'm
floor.
just kidding. I have zero opinions, but I wanted to see what you guys thought about the conversation around this game, and that I've seen two parts of it. It's, hey, this game is super fun and takes the series to a next level, new level, whatever you want to say. Like it's evolving it in a good way. But also, the Switch hardware is really showing its age because, boy, the performance has some issues sometimes. Not throughout, but like sometimes. So Maybe it is throughout. I don't know. So what do you guys think about
would-
that, and how's the game?
I would say it's constantly, Tim.
Okay. All right.
Those
So what are the,
performance
first of all, let's
issues.
just get the negative out of the let's get the N out of the way here. Okay. What is what are the
don't-
negatives here about this game? Like what's the performance issues? Is it in
How far
battles?
did you get in, Dan? Before I-
Honestly, my biggest gripe above all else, honestly, is like, all right, you're the highest grossing franchise out of anything. How the F do you not have voice acting? For the love of God, just put
That's
voice acting
that's-
in your game.
they said a long time ago they'll never have voice acting.
But
so,
didn't
you
Sword and
know,
Shield have a little bit? I swear,
and maybe
Are you
some,
sure?
like maybe like like similar.
no, I swear there was actual voice acting. I could be
I don't
wrong,
know, dude. You would
but-
have to prove me. You would have to prove me wrong because I feel so strongly that that's a no.
Either way, Kyle, they need to backtrack on that because it's stupid and just put voice acting. The anime, you have an anime that's been literally on air for like 20 years, if not more.
But
Like,
aren't those voices annoying? They're so annoying.
well, I mean, whatever. It's
would
I remember
the lack
watching
of
it.
voice acting is so far down on the list of actual problems with this game.
Oh, you see, for me, I just
that
don't.
it's so silly
don't-
that we're wasting.
Don't
any
not
time
give
on
me
it.
voice acting. What I'm saying is the franchise makes so much money. There's no reason to not hire voice actors to just like
Fair.
have the game be
They
acted
can't
out.
even
like,
hire devs to make a game that runs.
Sure,
properly.
yes,
And like so,
exactly.
you know, I don't
Exactly.
know. I don't know if money is like the issue or
well, it is
pointing
the
the
issue.
money at the right.
That is the issue.
I don't know.
Is it a fair comparison, even visually outside of the performance? I saw someone put a side by side of one of the landscapes in Xenoblade Chronicles 3,
Xenoblades, yeah,
and
exactly.
then they
Yeah.
put up a landscape of this new Pokemon game. Like I know they're trying to be very different things, but they're technically both on the Switch. They're Switch only RPGs where you can
Yes.
explore. Like, is that valid to say look
again,
at what this can
they
do?
just
and they can't?
specify
I think
that
those
was
are
just
really
more
valid
personal,
comparisons.
Yeah, that's more a personal gripe, the voice acting thing. The actual technical issues and, like you just said, the comparison to Xenoblade.
Yeah, we need to get back to a baseline with the series before we
Yeah.
even address like adding. You know what I mean? Like because like Arcurious or whatever it's called, like it worked fine.
Arceus.
There was still some like lagging and chugging and stuff like that there or whatever. Like take all those problems and amplify them by like tenfold or whatever.
Wow.
The performance is so bad. I walked into a town and the windmill was going at like 1 frame per second. You know?
There's some great stuff on like Twitter performance issues, or there's like this one point this person like literally becomes like this like elongated Mr. Fantastic, and they're like on a bike, or the thing that you get in the game, the Pokemon that are on the cover, you can ride them as motorcycles.
Okay.
Yeah.
And they're like sort of in a position of like they're on a bike and their body starts elongating like they're Mr. Fantastic, and
I
they
haven't
keep
seen
getting
that
up.
yet.
And
See, and like my stuff is just like chugging and just performance popping. I'm not the frame guy. Like these frames are in the single like it's crazy. Like it's noticeable.
Derek
like,
would kill himself.
Even myself, who's constantly wants to excuse that stuff, is just like, whoa, I'm gonna have a hard time defending that one.
I feel like
Um,
Pokemon could be at 240 frames per second, and Derek would still want to kill himself for playing it. But
Yeah,
that's just me.
You know, I don't
One
know
less
what
thing to kill himself over.
I don't know if you need to bring Monolith Software people over to like work on this. I don't really know how you get
Yeah.
like a game like that to run. Even though there is some slowdown and pop-ins like in Xenoblade 2, but it's not to this level. And Pokemon's very crude looking. You know what I mean?
There's way more going on in Xenoblade, like in the background and the environments.
There's way
and
more
everything.
going on in Xenoblade, and there's way
Well,
more
Bayonetta 3
verticality.
didn't seem to have these issues, and that's a crazy game visually and like.
It is,
all
but the
stuff happening.
backgrounds are obviously low res, you know,
They
and
are.
so
it's
so
Pokemon.
that's
Yeah.
where they made the concessions. Like, so where do you make those concessions in Pokemon to make an already low res game run properly? You know, like I
Good
don't
point.
know, you know.
Yeah.
It
No,
just seems
and-
like it also wasn't optimized, right? Like they just
No,
didn't.
not at all.
They kinda
Well,
didn't
and that's what we were talking about in the chat. Like a Nintendo game not being optimized. What the heck? Like every Nintendo game that's ever come out, like has mostly. I'm sure someone in the comments is gonna be like, "Well, remember this game?" You know, for the most part, Nintendo games release and
Yeah.
never need like a major update. You know what I mean? Like they just
Yeah.
come out of the box working, and even your games that are like exclusives that aren't Nintendo games, like your Monster Hunters, like Tim brought up, and there's and Monolith Software, which we just brought up. You know, like those games come out and they work. You know, so it's so
Yeah.
weird to watch a multi-billion-dollar franchise release a game that like I don't know performs like this or whatever.
Sword and Shield came out 2019. So like, I mean, that's 3-ish years, just kind of like,
Yeah.
give or take of like between these two releases. It's like I don't know how big or small these teams are. They also did the remakes or remasters or whatever of what was it, Diamond and Pearl? Was it Diamond and Pearl?
I think it was.
It was Diamond and Pearl.
That sounds
so
right.
it's like I don't know if that's like the B team also doing that, or if that's even like the main team contributing towards that. So it's like
I don't really know how they like split up their resources.
Yeah, how they split up their resources, but it's like 3 years is like a decent amount of time to like.
Yeah, and the open world is like it's big, but it's like take those areas in Sword and Shield and like those big open areas. That's the whole game, the same, and which those areas had a lot of pop in and stuff like that too. So even on a smaller scale, they didn't really have.
Not as bad though. It wasn't as bad.
Not as bad because it's a smaller area, but it's
it's because that game wasn't still fully.
We should have been able to guess that this game was going to run like this just based off of how those open areas like in Arceus and Sword and Shield were. So that's the negative. It's pretty crazy. I mean, on handheld, like those things are a little more minimal. The second I put it on my TV, it's kind of like a whole different experience. Where it's just almost laughable, But it being capped at like 30 frames, like on the handheld, and like it only needing to reach 720 instead of 1080 for whatever reason, that just minimizes a lot of the issues.
That makes sense.
So it is a handheld only series or handheld mostly series, so at least it works still in that regard. But like, it is nice to be able to throw it up on your TV and have like a not broken experience. Even though I wouldn't call it broken, I haven't had the game crash on me. I haven't lost progress. I haven't run into a game breaking butt. It's just bad performance, bad optimization. So
you've been mostly doing it handheld, whereas I'm the opposite. My wife and I were playing on the TV because we played them together now.
I've done about half and half at this point.
Okay.
So, I've got about like 8 hours on the TV, 8 hours in handheld. So
yeah, I haven't had anything too egregious happen, but we're I don't know, maybe a couple hours in. We're like kind of like right on the outskirts of that first, I guess, like what we would call a town, maybe. Like basically, you had like that cave in the event in the cave happen. And then you kind of go in that you're kind of following along with that new friend that you make. And honestly, I was just kind of running around.
And the game really wants you just to do that. Like, hey, just stop and run around every like square inch of this area, because there is something to find, whether it be an item or maybe a chance of getting a cool Pokemon or something like that is there. So like the want to explore is very high in this game. And they at least put things out there with markers to kind of like, oh, there's a glowing thing over there. Let's go see what kind of Pokeball that is or whatever. And like, oh, while I'm here, wow, look at all these types of monsters over here. So it's like you have a really nice feeling of exploration in this game, which they finally nailed after all this time.
Yeah. I was going to say, do you want to now try to jump into some positives, some P's instead of some...
Yeah, big time, because I have mostly nothing but P's outside of that, other than just the laughable, state that it's been put out in.
Other than it being laughably bad.
Outside of that, everything about it is stupid. Oh, you said P.
This is honestly giving me like the vibes of like playing Pokemon back in the day, like when I first started. Because it's like this is the first open. I didn't play Arceus, so for me, this is the first like fully open Pokemon game. I didn't get to experience. And
this is way more open than Arceus. Arceus was like a little zone. It's like, hey, go walk straight in this zone, and like that was your open world area. This is like very much so. They start you in the heart of the entire place, and whenever the game opens up, it's like, okay, so you know what to do, and you're like, no, I don't, but the game actually takes the training wheels off really quick, not in terms of difficulty, but just in terms of like really what you want to do. And you can walk into an area, and to say that's open world and you go anywhere is kind of nutty. Like it's still like level. Yeah. So it's like you walk into an area and it's level 50 things, and you're level 5. Guess who's not making progress in that area? So it's like there is some kind of boundaries that it wants to, but they're really light. You know what I mean? There's a lot of areas where you're walking in an area and it might be like a level, like 15, 20, 25 area. But when you get to level 15, you're kind of already 25. So you can really take care of all that stuff, in any kind of order.
You know what I actually super like though, Kyle, is targeting the Pokemon, because you can throw your Pokeball to kind of like catch them off guard.
Yep.
So you can basically like target a Pokemon and it'll show the level. So you're like, oh, okay, cool. Like I don't want to go for this level. Like in the beginning, like I don't catch level 2 Pokemon. I try to go for like a 4 or 5 just to kind of cut out some of those extra levels that, or kind of jump ahead a little bit. And yeah, in the beginning I was like, oh shoot, you can actually target it, and then you hurl your Pokeball at them, your starter Pokemon, to kind of catch them off guard. And I super enjoyed that. I thought that was really cool. Also, what I super enjoy in the beginning of the game, Kyle, is there's like literally 15, if not more, different Pokemon to catch right out the gate. You just go to that first area there, and it's just
removed from the times of like starting with just a rat and a pigeon. You know what I mean? Like, yeah,
which still exists.
Yeah, but not really. You can't get a Pidgeotto, you can't get a Rattata in that first area.
Well, I'm saying there's like a bird, there's the bird, and there's a bug, and like the kind of default stuff. But like, there's a variety right out the gate. And I was like, oh wow, really, I'm already.
You can build a team really nicely before you hit that first, city. So,
how dare you disparage Rattata and Pidgey?
I used to take Pidgey all the way. Yeah, Pidgey's like one of the best flying Pokemon out there. But anyways. I'm really enjoying it. There's not a lot to talk about outside of it just being
how's
Pokemon,
it different? So it's open world. That's a huge difference. Is that the main thing that sets it apart from, like, say, Sword and Shield? Which didn't Sword and Shield open things up a little more than before too, wasn't it?
Not really.
There was like a main area in the middle.
There was two main areas that were like Poke Parks that you could just explore kind of to your heart's content.
But it wasn't really open world yet.
Not really. That area was open, but like there was an entrance to it and an exit to it, and like you could go there, and like so there's that, but that's the whole world now, and again, like you can walk and go anywhere, and you start off with like this motorcycle Pokemon or whatever that allows you to get around pretty easily to a lot of different places. So, and there is a lot to do, there's the 3 different stories, I would really call them 3 different activities, calling them stories is kind of crazy. It's not The Witcher. You don't have like the main story and then blood and the sand or whatever it's called. And
blood and the sand.
And Witcher goes to France, I think, is the third one.
Yeah, you nailed it. You got all of them right.
It's not like that where it's like literally 3 different stories. Like no, you have 3 different objectives, and like those things are kind of woven out pretty organically through this place, But like for the first time ever, when you go off road, like in these games, it feels like you're kind of lost. You're like, where did I come from? I forgot where I was, So there is a sense of, grandness, I guess, like in the environments and stuff like that. They're just, it's at the end of the day, you're just collecting items and Pokemon. So
have you gotten to any gyms yet, Kyle?
Yeah, I've done like 6 gyms.
Really?
Gyms. Yeah.
6 of them?
I'm super far into the game. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Wow. Okay.
Yeah, I'm literally 16 hours in. That wasn't a made up number.
As far as combat goes, it's still turn-based RPG, basically, right?
Yeah. It feels a little more kind of like, because like you don't go into an arena and like it just zooms in right where you are, which that's what happens with a lot of the camera angles. If you're on a slope or anything like that, that camera will clip right through, and like you'll be seeing like half sky and half ground.
That sounds beautiful.
Ooh, it's wonderful. Yeah,
it's beautiful.
So like these big changes have caused big issues, for them. It's like, hey, we've been making the same game every year for the last 30 years, and a little more has been asked from us, and we kind of, shit the bed a little bit here.
Biting off a little more.
A little bit.
A little bit, yeah. I would still say the positives outweigh the negatives if you're already a Pokemon fan, but you're not grabbing any new people with like a world that is this unfunctional, from the start. So. Yeah. It's just not alluring, to hear about all that. And that's the other thing I keep on hearing. It's like it's down to 76, the lowest it's ever been. We all treat this series like a 7. You know what I mean? So 76 may actually be a little more.
I was looking through the Metacritic scores, right? I was about to bring that up. I was looking through them, and there are some that are in the high 80s, like Sun and Moon and X and Y. It's like some of them have just killed it with reviews.
Yeah.
And there's some that didn't. Some of them were down in the low 80s or down into the high 70s. So it's not like it's way behind by a lot. It's just a few points below previous.
And even when you give a Pokemon, let's just call it an 86 Metacritic score or whatever, I'm always kind of like, really, guys, and I play these every year and to the extreme, but like, these aren't a 9 out of 10 series. It's not an 8 out of 10 series. You know what I mean?
It is on our hearts with like the original ones, right?
Yeah.
The original Blue and Red is like, dude, in my heart, that's
nostalgia, man.
It's my ultimate like palate cleanser at the end of the year every year. It just feels nice to like kind of blow through. I have a lot of friends that play this, so it becomes kind of a weirdly communal thing for a little while, for those first few weeks that it comes out. And they do a really good job of, giving you kind of reasons to come back throughout the next year, with DLC or mystery presents that they give you over the internet and stuff like that. So it's like, they do a good job of like creating you know, a sense of like, hey, we're back in Pokemon season again, and it definitely November always feels like that to me. So
Yeah, Sword and Shield were at 80, and Violet and Scarlet are at 77. Just as far as Metacritic goes, for whatever that's worth. So it's not like it's that far off from
No.
last entry.
yeah.
The reason I was bringing up the gyms though, because you can approach them. What I heard, I remember before the game coming out, you can actually go out of order with the gyms, right? Because of the sort of the design of the game, you can kind of just go to.
By the time
gyms
I
you want.
started doing gyms, I could have done the first 3 gyms and stomped all over them. It wouldn't have
so there you
mattered what
go.
order it was, even though they were like tiered, like 15, 20,
Mhm.
25. I was like 27 by the time I showed up to the very first gym, you know. So
But the fact
you know,
that you can do
theoretically,
that-
I could really grind and never do a gym and then just go straight for the last gym and just do that
Hmm.
one if you really wanted to, you know.
But I'm guessing you probably need the badges to get like sort of the Elite Four thing. Is they always check to make sure you have the badges.
Well,
right?
and that's the other thing is that like you can't really do what I just said because you know, when you get a gym badge, you can now control Pokemon 5 levels
Right,
higher.
that too.
So
That
25,
too.
35,
Yes,
40,
yes.
you know, and so on and so forth. So if you're rocking a team of 50s, none of them are listening to you if you don't have 5, you know,
Right.
gym badges. So
I'm not listening to you.
I'm not listening to you.
But yeah, I mean, for me, like again, I'm not nearly as far as Kyle, but it is giving me that beginning sensation of like, oh, this feels like a sort of like a really kind of like mysterious adventure. Like I don't know what's before me, because I especially with this one, I really have like been trying to stay away from like them unveiling new Pokemon and stuff.
I haven't
Like
seen any of them, so when I see a new one, I'm like, whoa! And I've never done that before, so this is
Yeah.
actually
I
pretty
usually,
fun,
I usually check some, or like with the starters, I like to. I always kind of just. I usually go with water ultimately, but I usually go with whatever looks the coolest in their final form, and this one I just didn't do that at all. So who did you
There's
actually?
a real air of mystery to this that really likens back to the original, so I do really enjoy that. And I have mostly positive things to say about the whole game, but it's, you know,
what started?
Hopefully a couple updates are coming, you know. Hopefully
yeah. What starter did you go with, Kyle?
The Pompadour duck thing.
Yes. Quaxley.
Sure.
Yeah, quite sure.
That's
Quaxley.
water, I assume, right?
He's fabulous. Yes, he's a fabulous duck. We went with Sprigatito, which is the cat, because my wife said so.
Okay. Yeah.
Although the was it Fuecoco, which is like the alligator, the fire alligator, the fire one. Very
that seems
adorable.
to be the fan favorite. Yeah.
Yeah, he's just like in the beginning you actually like walk with them. There's like a story bit where the guy's like, I'm gonna go over there, meet me down there, and decide what Pokemon you want. And you literally like go for a walk with them, and they're just following behind you. It's the most adorable thing in the world. And Fuecoco is like just like. Like his mouth is just hanging open. He's just looking up into the sky, just like not a care in the world. I was like, dude, this guy is fantastic. But they're very adorable. So yeah. But I'm enjoying again, only a couple of hours in, but I am enjoying it. So
nice. Well, and it's also one that's fun to play with your wife. Like if it's a game you could play with a friend or family, then that can make the experience more fun too.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, it's one that I know my kids have on their Christmas lists. You know, they're gonna have to wait. I'll tell them too. Like, don't worry. By the time it comes to you for Christmas, they'll have patched it.
Yeah,
it'll run.
Let them know they're missing the worst version of it right now.
Yeah, don't worry, kids. You wait for the patch.
You wait for that patch, and you'll be good to go. Santa's gonna deliver a patch before you get the game.
He is. He's gonna personally hand deliver that.
Hard
patch.
at work in that workshop of his.
He's gonna show up with the USB drive, plug it into your Switch.
I like to think that modern day elves are just working on patches for software.
They're in crunch time permanently.
It's crunch.
No one ever talks about the elf.
Cyberpunk was a nightmare for them when it released.
Thank you for bringing that up, Jeff. I want to. This is my opportunity to bring up the problem with crunch in the elf community. We don't talk about this.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
They work once a year, Tim. They can handle it. I'll be the aggressor on this one.
That's. I hear a lot of privilege from one side of the camera.
Listen, hashtag Elf Lives Matter. All right, Elf Lives Matter.
Dan's the one that took it there. I didn't do that. All right. There's another game that came out this week from developer Obsidian, and that is Pentiment. This is not the kind of game you would look at and be like, "Oh yeah, Obsidian probably made this, right?"
Yeah, right.
Isn't that who made this? But that's what's on Jeff's background now. If you're watching this on YouTube, Jeff, I think you already completed this game.
Yeah,
Right?
I did. It was about like a
Like,
10 to
but
12
sounds
hour
like-
experience. Yeah.
Oh, okay. It wasn't like 4 or 5. Wow. Okay.
No.
Yeah.
I have no clue what this game even is. Like I've
Yes,
I mean,
tell us
visually I
about-
know what it is, but
Tell us about Pentiment and what was it that compelled you to play it all the way through? That's not like a short game to fly through.
No,
so.
it's not. It's I think once I got into the groove and the pacing of what the game was doing, that's when I decided, all right, I won't go to bed and just stop playing this game forever. Because there was an early mark, like early on in the first 2 hours, I'm walking around as this artist in this like ancient French town. And I say ancient, I mean like around the time of Martin Luther, like in the Lutheran ideologies of the church start to take fruition, because they talk about that in the story. That's the time frame that we're looking at. So I'm like wandering around and just talking to people and reading. There's no voiceover. Talk about a gripe that I should have about this game. Obsidian, you have money. This would have been amazing with voice acting.
What the hell?
This would have been
What the hell?
so
No
good.
voice
with
acting?
Like, their pedigree being like storytelling and story-driven,
Yeah.
like narratives and RPGs, like
Yeah.
go a little voice acting. Dan, you're allowed to be
Yeah,
mad at this
it's-
one.
listen,
You gotta let the other one go.
I'm even more furious about this then. I'm more furious.
Right. But that was the main turnoff for me at the beginning of it. Was
Sure.
like I just have to read and sure, the
Yeah.
font is very beautiful and very much from that era of writing and stuff.
They're like, hey, back then they wouldn't have had voiceovers in their games.
Yeah, back then.
Okay.
Back then they wouldn't have even
Okay.
said
Yeah,
words.
that's-
They would have just
that's an
written them
argument.
down. And
Games
So-
were much more simple back
Games
then.
were very simple back during the Martin Luther days.
Right.
We were all there. No one talked back then.
Yeah.
Everyone just passed letters, you know?
Yeah. They just grunted like the Monty Python characters.
The world couldn't render speaking at
By
that
the
point.
way,
There wasn't
it
enough
does-
servers.
The animation and art style does remind me a little bit of Monty Python and the Holy Grail's art.
Yes.
Does it kind of
It
move
is.
like that?
It
too?
is exactly like that. Yeah, when you are allowed to actually roam around the town, and it's like a small town,
Okay.
like think South Park, the Stick of Truth town, and
Mhm.
how kind of it wasn't massive, but you still kind of had to figure out where things were, and then once you did, you were like,
Yeah.
oh, I know where they want me to go. They want to go over here. Like you knew exactly where to go after like a few hours of playing it, and this is that type of map where when it opens up after a conversation, the animation doesn't change. It looks actually like a cartoon, kind of like the Monty Python animation you're talking about, which I assume is based on either this game based their artwork on the Monty Python art style, or Monty Python based that art style on genuine art from around that time. I don't know. But I feel like these guys did their homework, because they're referencing a lot of stuff that from mythology, of like Roman mythology and stuff that
Unless this game is super goofy, I'm going to assume they both just happen to share the same source material for
maybe
inspiration.
so.
That's
Yeah,
my
maybe so. It's not a comedic game. There are some funny moments every now and then from some characters that are just kind of dickish. And those interactions can be fun. Or you can choose to be a dick. Like you have a choice. It's an RPG in that sense, where you can just like choose the meanest option in your list of dialogue choices, and that drives how the community feels about you. And
Are you controlling one character? Or
yeah,
like
you're
multiple?
controlling one character, and there's some story things that happen. Just don't worry about it. But
Just don't worry about it, Kyle. Jeez.
Don't worry about the characters, okay?
I'm kind of like only
no.
worrying about it now.
I'm
So
worried
it's a
about
video
it a
game you
lot.
don't think about.
Yeah.
You just don't think about what happens in the game.
It's a murder mystery, and I kind of knew that going in, but I didn't know about the RPG elements where, as you're introducing yourself to people, they go, "Oh, so what did you do before?" And then a list of skills pop up that you can choose from that you want to take on for the rest of the game, basically. So I at the beginning I said, okay, so before I became an artist, I studied law and I lived in Italy. So like I had certain skills where I could translate Italian. I could during a debate, I could be like, well, actually, the law says this, so you would actually be fine if you did this or whatever. So you could actually convince people to do something or not do something based on your knowledge beforehand. And then in Act 2, it continues. Like there's 3 acts total, and then those are broken up with chapters, I guess, like mini chapters. And in Act 2, it's like even more, like because it's a story that spans over the course of 25 years. So you come back to town after something happens, and you're supposed to like pick from a new set of skills. Like, okay, this time I stayed in France, and I also learned something else. I learned another trade or whatever. So like those things you pick are the RPG elements. Like it's RPG light because you're not really like, I'm gonna upgrade my. There's no combat, so it's not like I'm upgrading gear or nothing. It's not like that RPG. It's more conversational based.
Dude, you're describing Game Deck. Game Deck has those same RPG through conversation mechanics.
Gotcha.
Same exact thing.
Well, then you're gonna
What the
love this
hell?
game. You're gonna
Yeah,
love it.
I'm
I don't
looking
know
forward
that you'll
to it.
love it like immediately, but as soon as
Yeah.
you see the murder starts, and then like
Yeah.
your character is like, okay, I'll just do my own investigation before the official lords, whatever the cops back then, whatever they were called, come into town and start taking over the investigation. That's when it gripped me, and I was like, okay, well, I got to see this through, because I just came upon new evidence for this guy, and like, and time is finite too. Time is a resource in this game. So if you don't get to explore one specific person that you thought was guilty, then they're just rolled out. By the time you get to, by the time you have to make your verdict and tell the people in charge what you know, you just don't get to choose them as an option. It's
What the hell was, I can't think of what it is, that Russian studio that made that role-playing game, but like there's no combat in it. It's just
Disco Elysium.
Yes, thank you, Jesus Christ.
Their combat
reminds me the way you're
not
describing
combat,
it.
but their actions are kind of like a classic board game RPG where you can roll a dice to try to stab somebody, and if you don't roll,
it seems like
Okay.
But that seemed like it was less about kind of like being a game where the main thing is like
it was written
combat.
by a novelist, so it was like
right.
read this conversation, and there was internal dialogue in that game too, where like he would have these crazy thoughts that were just very like exquisitely.
But that's
written.
what this is reminding me of, because this sounds like there's no combat in this, right? Like
right. I feel like the pacing in this is like Disco Elysium. The only reason I didn't stick with that is because it's just got weird pacing, and it's I don't know. It's got something about it that made me go, I don't know if I have the patience for this.
It's got a grimy dirtiness to it that doesn't. You have to be in the right place for it.
And the world that they built out is so intricate that I'm like, I don't have the brain space to keep notes on this.
And I don't want to skip
you have
everything.
to play. That's the only game you can be playing if you're playing something.
And I don't want to miss.
It's
Like there's so
very
much
lore
cool
heavy.
stuff there. I don't want to fly through it and miss a bunch of cool stuff. So,
Whereas this one, what's interesting about this one too is there are so many effing characters in town. And they'll just throw out names like, oh, so-and-so, blah, blah, blah. And the names will be highlighted as, if they're a person, it'll be highlighted red or whatever, or blue, whatever. It'll be highlighted a different color in your dialogue. And like, I didn't actually memorize who people were until the third act of the story. Like I didn't, like they would start throwing out the first names of people like, oh, go talk to Werner. And I'm like, oh, I know who that is. Like I actually know where he is in the map and stuff. Like it wasn't like as much of a guessing game anymore. But they do, like you're thrust in this town and they already are living their lives. They know everybody already. So they kind of just name drop and you kind of have to figure out who is who. And also that you have to figure out along the way how your interactions with them will impact their choices later. Like the game does drop little nuggets of this will be remembered, kind of like Telltale, on rare occasion, but you don't really know until later in a critical moment. Like at one point I had to convince a character to leave. And it'll pop up like a checklist right as I'm about to tell them what to do, and it has all these beats that I didn't hit, so like I wasn't able to convince that person to leave or whatever. So it shows that instead of a check mark, it has like an X, and it's basically like, oh, you failed that part or whatever. But that's just one, I guess, branch of the story that I didn't get to explore. But I don't think the game is trying to punish you or say you did something wrong. I think that's where the writing excels too, is like they don't really tell you whenever you find all the evidence for one specific killer in the first act, or the person that you think is a killer, and you go and you tell the people in charge, this is who did it and here's all the evidence. It is just mountains of circumstantial evidence that would not, pass in our current legal system like at all. But back then it's like, well, that's enough for me. Let's go chop off their head. Like, so that's, so like you have to make this choice and watch the public execution. And then like, that's it. And like, I was like, holy crap. They didn't even tell me that this person did the murder. Like, I just have to sit with this. That's crazy. And then Act 2 is like the aftermath many years later. It's kind of wild. It's a bold ass game, dude. I'm not going to lie. I was, I was expecting to be supremely bored. Honestly, I thought it was going to be a chore and I was ready to quit, preparing myself mentally to just quit it after 3 hours. But when that murder happened, I was like, okay, you got me now. Now I got to find evidence and parse through it. And yeah, it's really good, man. It's really well done.
You just need a good story, and again, like the setup of it, of like things like missing out on things is very like Telltale or
very much so.
Or what's the other studio with the Detroit Become Human and so on and so forth?
Quantic
Quantic Dream, yeah.
Quantic Dream,
Thank you. Like those type of games, like I love, that's some of our favorite things about those games is kind of like that permanent, like, oh shit, like I made a decision, like now the story is forward
and there's no going back. Yeah. Like
So
there was there was at times there would be like a conversation that I would have with a character that it would be like my first conversation with them in the game, and they would bring something up related to the murder that I'm investigating. And because I'd never talked to them before, it automatically said, "Oh, you can't convince this person of anything." Like it just goes X mark. Oh, you couldn't do it, and I'm like, "Oh, I had that choice." Like you just some things you just don't discover until way later. And the game, when you time, like I said, time is a resource. So there's a clock that pops up every now and then when you've spent your time kind of doing too much, and then you have to go to bed. Like you have to eat your meals. You have to do these things.
I don't want.
I don't want.
So there are parts in the game where the third act doesn't have you do any of that, by the way. But there are parts in the game where like the character will tell you, "Oh, are you sure you want to do this? This is going to take some time." So they'll give you like alerts whenever you're in the middle of a conversation that the conversation is going to take way too long. So I didn't catch that until like halfway through the game that's what the game was doing. So when that happens, just go and try and talk to as many people as you can. And then come back to whatever that was.
That way you have some ammo for verdict
exactly.
time.
Yeah, exactly. That way you do have more conversation avenues.
The time limit sounds stressful. So like I spent a lot of time playing that game I talked about. It's from last year. I played it early this year called Game Deck. Disco Elysium's in the same boat. Detroit Become Human's a great comparison to like these adventure RPG games where it's not just a story where you press B to open the door and then watch. Like it's not like that. It's like you truly map out the story and the interactions and like you said, Jeff, with who you convict or I guess blame for something.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of that. And Game Deck's the same way. You're trying to solve a mystery, and regularly you have to kind of make a call on who's guilty of whatever the thing is you're trying to figure out in that moment. And it can be nerve-wracking if you're like, I guess I didn't find everything because there's like a whole blank path that I can't pick now. So like, shoot, what did I? There's a lot of that
for replayability, though, right?
Exactly.
Absolutely. I feel like I read somewhere that this game, in order to get like a whatever the platinum equivalent is on Xbox, you have to play it 4 or 5 times to get all the achievements. And that's because of different types of jobs backgrounds and trades you can come from. And like, of course, all the people that you talk to. And if you choose to be a dick or not in the game, maybe you're the person that like the church is like the big bad in the game because they are just coming into too much power and they are taxing the crap out of the entire town. So like, what if during one playthrough I decided to align with the church? I that could be a thing. So I don't. There are so many others. Yeah, exactly. I could be a. This era's equivalent of a corpo, basically. Yeah. I gotta commend Obsidian, though. I mean, like, I feel like at this point, their world building should be something that's brought up as like, oh, they're really excellent at that. Like, they have an excellence in that. Their games.
Seems like the art style fits this type of game too.
Definitely, it definitely does.
Yeah, I feel like them doing games like what was the one that just came out that we gave Game of the Year to?
Outer Worlds.
Outer Worlds.
And Grounded
and
New Vegas. Like those are really lore heavy. Like we created this world, and like those are games that people remember like really heavily. So it's like. To take those lessons and like take it to like a smaller venue, but still kind of make it, something as dense that they're kind of known for. I think it's pretty cool,
Yeah,
so, cool. I think I always take a break and do a game like this if it means the next big thing that you do is awesome. You know what I mean? Like, if getting small stuff like this out of your system is like is healthy for a team, I wish more teams would do it. So
I would imagine it is. I mean, you saw Ubisoft do it with some of their teams with Child of Light and that World War.
So yeah, they did do Stick of Truth. Obsidian did do Stick of Truth.
Oh yeah, they did.
Oh yeah. So yeah, there's actually elements of like discovery in the environment. Whenever you would go to,
I didn't know they did that game.
Yeah, that's right, because Ubisoft
not both
completely did. Completely did Fractured, however whole. They completely did that one. Where
what now?
The Fractured, however whole. In this game reminded me the sense of discovery that you tend to have if you just be more curious with this game. If you see an open door, go through it, look for stuff. That reminded me of Stick of Truth, where sometimes they'd be like, "Oh, look, this door's open," and like, oh, there's like one of the Pokemon ripoffs in here. Oh my god, like I didn't, there was that sense of discovery and the stick of truth too, and I feel like they carried that over into this game. There's a lot of parallels in this game with the way that they designed the map for Stick of Truth and stuff.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's kind of cool.
Fallout New Vegas, which again, it's not Bethesda proper, it's them. Like, is a lot of people's favorite Fallout game. So out of all the ones they made, like,
and that is the one that has the most sense of like again, like world building and like, oh, y'all really created like different actual like lore and history for each like section.
That's what I've heard.
So
these writers are just so good.
Yeah. Well, and this game is getting just rave reviews, and I am excited to play this one.
I gotta toot my own horn a little bit and say I predicted that. Just throwing that out there.
Toot away, sir.
I was like, guys, this game's gonna be an indie darling. Just watch, and then.
But you know what? You did not predict that it wouldn't get delayed, so you get no.
Yeah, I know.
Obsidian be an indie studio? Is that? Are we calling?
You're right. You're right. At this point, yeah, you're right.
But if you were to see it,
putting out indie games, it's very interesting.
If you didn't know the publisher developer, you would have thought, "Oh, cool little indie game. I wonder who made this."
Yeah, of course. 100%. Yeah, 100%.
It's got that indie vibe.
They could do this. They're juggling like 3 different things. They're doing Outer Worlds 2. We know that.
Was it Awakened or Avowed or something?
Yeah, they have that too. That could hopefully is not dead. Right. It might still be in pre-production though. I bet it's in pre-production hell. But like they were still
sitting there like, we should probably get to work on this one.
They get for real. I mean, we announced it.
Y'all didn't hit the enter button on announce that, did y'all? Oh god.
Now we gotta make that Elder Scrolls killer,
But the fact that they did the full release for Grounded this year, and they did this one, I mean, clearly they're more than just I guess they're not an indie developer anymore. So that's whoops. I can't use that word anymore.
Well, Microsoft owns them now, right? So they got that Microsoft money,
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah. At least now, some Microsoft studios making games. That's good to know.
I know. This is the only Xbox exclusive.
I think this is literally the only one this year.
Literally the only one.
Unless you count Grounded, which has technically been in early access on all consoles.
And I guess you could count Grounded. Yeah, that's what it feels like. I was a child when that came
that'd be like counting when Valheim's in full release next year and hits consoles. I'm like, that was a 2021 game. Sorry,
Tim, by the way, there's the trailer's coming out for a while.
It comes out tomorrow.
Tuesday?
Yeah.
Is it Tuesday?
It might be Tuesday. I think it's on the 22nd.
22nd? Yeah.
Well, I will say that this game definitely made my top 10 for sure.
That's great.
I mean, it's not like top 5 just because of the type of game it is and how I tend to not. Those games tend to not be my favorite, but the writing is so good, and the pacing too. The fact that it sucked me in despite being a game that's like not something I gravitate towards. I mean, I had to put it in there. I was like, well, I have to put this in here now.
Well, there's another Game Pass game that I want to hear about, which is a much shorter experience. But I remember when they showed the ad for this, or whatever, the trailer for Somerville, it looked fascinating and sad. It kind of had a, what's that game, that side-scrolling survivor game where there's like an apocalypse and you're trying to all live? It's not like The Last. It's like it's a Last of Us type of phrase. It's like the.
Kyle played it a shit ton. It was
This War of Mine?
Is it this
Something
War of
like
Mine?
that. Yeah.
Maybe?
Yeah.
Anyway, it has that kind of vibe where everything looks really sad and things are not going well. At least that's just the vibe that I get. So tell me about this game.
Yeah, the Somerville, this is a 2-3 hour experience, like 3 hours tops. Okay. If you're not too dumb about puzzle areas, and the puzzles are akin to like, I'm going to be referencing Inside a lot, but it's akin to what Inside did.
Because it's the same devs, right?
Kind of. So like the developer, Playdead is the developer who did Inside and Limbo. One of the co-founders left and created a new company, and this is their first game, is Somerville.
Got it.
But you see the vibes of Inside and Limbo for days. I mean, it's very similar, just in creepiness and stuff like that. So this is a sci-fi game, whereas I think Inside was just more of like a body horror weird thing. Mm-hmm. This is definitely a sci-fi horror game, where like it starts and you're with this family with like a toddler and with a dog too, a very loyal dog. He follows you through half the game.
Not the dog.
Dan, don't play this game.
No, guys, no,
not the dog. But like, so it starts with like something sci-fi related happens and you get separated from your family and you get equipped with this thing on your wrist that helps you kind of go through puzzle areas. And there are some stealth aspects too, similar to like Inside or something like that, where like if you see a light and it shines on you, then it somehow finds a way to kill you. So you need to avoid sometimes you need to avoid a light or whatever. So there's some stealth aspects where you need to sneak around too. But it's short. It's okay. I came down and it kind of just feeling like it was okay, because the gameplay wasn't as compelling as like Inside was such a weird game.
Yep.
With probably the most unique gameplay I've ever played on a platformer like that, a puzzle platformer.
Yep.
That kept me wanting to play. Like, what am I going to do for the next puzzle? This is crazy.
Use a freaking brain worm to do stuff Inside, and it just like
Yeah.
sticks out of your head, wiggling.
Yeah, it's so weird. But this game didn't really have. This game's way more straightforward than that gameplay wise. Like you're
Also,
one person the whole time, and that's
with
it.
Inside, it has the most bonkers closing level ever.
Yeah.
Like,
and it just
time.
ends, credits roll, and you're like, what the fuck was that?
yeah,
That dev
First
was
of all-
like, you're stuck with that for a while.
yeah, we're gonna make you look at this and control it for the last chunk of this game,
Yeah.
and then we're gonna just have the game end. Like, what? Anyway,
That
So-
game
so
broke
this
my
has-
brain, dude.
Interesting vibes, it seems like, but you're saying
Yeah.
it's not necessarily fun to play.
I don't think it's all that. I don't think the environments and the gameplay, which I went into it expecting it to be very limited gameplay, and that's fine.
Yeah.
I'm cool with that if the game is good. I just didn't find both of those aspects very compelling. Like,
No, that
you know,
super bumps me out. 'Cause
Yeah.
I really like the vibes of it. Like when they first showed, I was like, "Holy crap, this looks
Yeah.
interesting." Like,
definitely the vibes and the length of the game pushed me through, because I was like, it's 2 hours, 2.5 hours.
Yeah.
Just do it, and I'm glad I did.
just
You
do
know.
it.
Yeah.
And the ending relies on a choice too. There's 3
Hmm.
different endings you can get, which is kind of cool. I didn't realize that until I finished it, and then
Yeah.
I looked up on YouTube like other people's gameplay, and it was like all endings, and I was like, what do you mean all endings? So that's kind
kinda
of
cool,
wild.
man.
Yeah. I feel like I
Well-
got the best one, quote unquote.
sticking with the Game Pass vibes, I did want to share that I finished the Legend of Tianding, that game I talked about
Ah.
a little
Oh,
bit ago.
that's awesome.
It's only like a 4.5 hour game.
Mhm.
It took me closer to 5 because there were a couple of bosses that the difficulty spikes are what keep that game from being a strong recommend.
Hmm.
Because you can fly through areas, you're taking out huge groups of enemies. They'll put you like in a little arena setting where you walk in and it zooms out a little bit and the doors on both sides shut. And if you played games for any amount of time, you know, like I'm about to get jumped by a whole bunch of enemies here. So you can do that, and you can do all these incredible moves, stealing their weapons, and it feels great. It's very smooth. You can get to a boss fight and just get completely owned 10 times in a row, and you keep losing like a good chunk of change, like a lot of your money when you die, and you just lose it. It's not like go recollect it from your dead body. It's just it bounces out of your body and it's gone. And so that was pretty frustrating. Like the difficulty spike is really annoying, and not that you need a ton of money for a lot of stuff in this game. You only use it for like 2 or 3 things. It was just frustrating. So like
Sure.
there's these frustrating difficulty spikes that keep it from being a strong recommend. That being said, it's just under like Eiyuden Chronicle Rising, and I put that one above it because I think the characters and world were just so charming, and the visuals, like that game was so. I just had a blast with that game. Is it repetitive and is it very simplified?
Yeah.
Sure, absolutely. Like, and it's very easy, and that's all fine. But I really liked that game. This one has similar art styles and movements in a way, much darker story, like really dark. It's also apparently based on the real legend out of Taiwan. We talked about it last time.
Huh.
But
Yeah. So that's like their version of Robin Hood, basically.
yeah, and it's just even the way that it ends. There's everything about it is just like it's definitely not the kind of story that's supposed to make you feel super great.
Sure.
Okay.
It's just more telling. Like here's this
I
legend's arc. So anyway, but I liked it. I thought it was a lot of fun outside of some of the boss battles, which the bosses looked cool. They looked like Street Fighter 2, enemies that you might fight. Like
Oh, cool.
even their stances, as it says, like you versus whoever, and then you kind of go into the battle. Like that stuff was cool. But anyway, so I thought it was a pretty fun little game. And it was
That is,
also, I knew it was short, so I was like, let me just finish because it's been a
Yeah.
while since I finished a game. I was
Yeah.
like, I gotta finish something, so I finished.
It's nice to kind of put
Yeah.
a game on the list, if you will.
Yeah,
know?
dude,
for
I love
real.
doing
I mean,
that.
that was the
Stuff, yeah.
main reason I stuck with Somerville. I was like, I'm already halfway through the game when I decided that it was okay. Like I'm already halfway through.
Yeah.
So I mean, I might as well just see it through. Who cares? You know, and the ending is cool. But like Legend of Tianding, however it's pronounced, that's a really cool game. Like I played like an hour and a half of that around the time you started playing it.
Yep.
That's a really cool game and some cool combat. Love the art style. It's almost like comic booky, but like I don't know. But I am a little disappointed to hear about the difficulty spikes because that will prevent me from seeing a game through. When a boss is too hard, I'll be like, all right, well, I guess I had fun. You know, like
the final boss battle was so difficult. I was like, what am I like? Is this a Souls game all of a sudden? Like it was so tough. And his attack patterns were very hard to predict. And you know how all these games give you a little tell depending on, he's about to do an attack that goes across the screen or some kind of attack that slams the ground. Like you're looking for that. It's just, and most of the game delivers that to you in a way that, you know, makes you feel smart when you figure it out. And that final boss fight was so tough. But there is a more story friendly setting. And so if you leave it on there, I think the damage the bosses were doing to me, like I would get hit 2-3 times and be dead. And I was like, this is getting really annoying. And I don't have a window to like heal. You have these little food items you can eat to heal. There's a little animation that you're not invincible during. And so like you have to stand there and chomp on whatever the food is. And if you get hit, you're dead. So it's little things like the game's clearly a small team made it. It's really impressive in a lot of ways. But I do recommend just play it on the easy mode because I think that bosses, because I looked it up, I was like, what does easy mode do? And it literally just takes down the damage they do and it ups the damage you do. So what would have taken 2-3 hits to kill me apparently was going to take.
I bet I could
7 or 8.
Beat it then. Yeah.
Yeah.
Why not? It's a good game. It's a cool story and setting too.
It is a cool little game. I like it. And I also had never heard that. You know, that's one of those things where we would have never heard that story.
Yeah, that's not part of our history. We have Texas history in my state, but you know.
Yeah. Texas history.
Texas history. That's all they teach in school.
Most of
one of the things that I think
Ohio, and we never did much Ohio history.
No, I think we're the only like Kyle and I talked about this in our chat with you guys. Like, I think it wasn't until we talked to people in different states that we were like, you guys don't have that?
I was like, what did y'all learn in Colorado history? And they're like, what are you talking about? I'm like, you know, your whole class, Colorado history. You know, no, we don't do that.
We had a whole year of it.
Well, we have a whole class of our whole state. Well, where'd you come from? Texas? And they're like, oh.
God.
No one's ever been surprised. They're like, oh, okay, yeah.
I'm sure there's a Florida history too. This
I
seems
was
like
just
the kind of
gonna
state
say
that
there's got to be something for Florida.
Yeah.
So I do recommend that game. That's really the only gaming I've gotten in besides some chunks here and there of God of War late at night. Although it's one of those weeks where I'm so tired by the time I sit down to play a game. I get maybe 45 minutes, an hour in, and I can feel myself nodding off. I'm like, I am so interested in enjoying this. But it doesn't matter. My body is telling me like, we're done. We're done for the day.
But my body.
Yeah. So it's telling me no.
Exactly.
But I did play some more of God of War and continue to think what I thought last week. Just on the extra hour or two I've played since then. And that is, it's an absolutely gorgeous and amazing game that's doing what it's trying to do. And you'll hear us say that a lot, dear listener and viewer, as we get into Game of the Year discussion. What is a game trying to do? Not what do you wish it did or some other game did, and you like that. Like that's where, at least for my
voice acting.
Right,
Dan?
God of War has terrible voice acting. I wish it
had. That's God of War's problem. See, now we're all speaking the same language.
There we go.
Now we're all on the same page.
But I think what they're trying to do, I think they're trying to tell an incredibly cinematic and moving, serious story that happens to have some very good combat, maybe even excellent combat, depending on your preferences. But at the very least, very fun combat, and just give you just an eye-popping visual experience along the way. And so I think that's what they're trying to do. I don't think they're trying to give you this sense of go and explore. The world is your oyster. Like we'll give you an intro and then we'll open it up for it. Like that's not what they're trying to do. They're not trying to create a Souls type game or a Zelda type game. So I think for everything they're trying to do, they're nailing it, and that's why this game deserves all the praise it's getting.
Nor does it need to be, because like I saw, like, I forget what site it was, but they're like, yeah, this is kind of a breath of fresh air, because it's like it doesn't just need to be this bloated, like just go any sort of thing. It doesn't need to be that. Like so many games the past like decade.
Can you imagine if this game had as much side content as like Horizon? Like
Dude,
it would
no.
take away from like the story, you know what I
Yep.
mean? Because
Yeah.
like at some point like you need to get back to that story because it's
I feel like they had
You
a
know,
direct. They had to have had a directive internally that was like
Absolute-
story and lore first.
that's why they're like
the rest
okay,
can
so
you know?
this area has got a lot of side stuff. We're gonna cut half of it off with the need
Yep.
of a you know. So it's like they
Yeah.
do a really good job making sure that if you stray from the path, you always are coming right back to the story, which obviously, as Tim is saying, is like is the thing that it's trying to do. And yeah, I think it does a really good job of like sparsing all that stuff out, and you can meet that stuff on your own terms.
Yeah.
I haven't stopped to do a lot of side stuff, and I have been at the right level for normal mode to like keep on playing without it pushing back too much.
Oh, that's good.
So-
Okay, that's good.
So and I plan to do a lot of I was telling Jeff my plan, and this is no spoilers, but I'm just like I think I'm gonna get everything I need to get, you know, and then I'll double back and like do all the side stuff at the same time.
Especially
So-
because I mentioned last week there's a third weapon, and that just makes exploration all the better at a certain point. So yeah, I get waiting. I get it.
So obviously, totally sarcastic. The voice acting is adequate. But like,
It's
man,
all right.
yeah, but like there's just, and it's like pretty much every scene, but like there are some particular scenes that it's just like it just grabs your attention so goddamn well, and I'm just sitting there and I'm like so super focused on what's being said, what's happening, the you know, revelation or whatever it is.
Yeah, I
I
agree.
got to a part where never mind, I'd have to be too specific with it, but yeah, I'm about like 13 hours in.
Okay.
I don't know.
Yeah, I'm like
A little
16,
less than
17.
halfway through if you're going through main story.
I'm at about
pretty
that
well.
9-hour mark, maybe 8.5, 9-hour mark.
Okay,
Almost
so
Okay.
Tim's not quite there yet, but I'm in a place, a newer place, and I was like, oh, okay, this is interesting.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
there's-
Kyle, I think he's there. He was there too. Yep.
There's been a couple times, and I won't say any lines or anything like that, where like a line gets delivered, and I go, "Oh, that's good writing." Like out loud, I'll say that. Like the
Oh,
writing
that's
is
cool.
so good, I'll
That's
actually,
good.
"Oh, that's a good line." Like, oh, you know, and
There-
like, it's.
This game was like therapy for me. I had an experience with it over the weekend after we recorded last week, where I beat it on Sunday or Monday. Monday, it might have been Monday, but there is like just a emotionally brutal part in the game, like much later on, and Kratos and Mimir just have the best lines and exchanges during that entire period, to the point where I was like, Kratos said something that I didn't know I needed to hear, but I needed to hear it and apply it to my life.
That's cool.
And
It's almost like Christopher Judge
and
is
it
a
broke
master at
you.
this. It's almost
Yeah,
like
it's almost like he knows what. Almost like he's won a statue before or
it's
something.
almost like
Yeah,
he's
almost like-
great
yeah.
at this.
Mimir is like this excellent, like emotional middleman for like
Yeah.
Kratos, just
Yeah,
like kind of like
he'll let like Atreus get ahead or whatever, and then he'll give parenting advice. Like
yeah.
Well,
You
it's
know what's
great.
amazing is as you're talking about this, like it reminds me that, and I know maybe there are places where they get recognition, but people who do excellent mocap work, and that's across movies and games, they just
Yeah.
deserve so much credit. And of course, it
Yeah.
started with, I'm blanking on his name, Andy Gollum. What's his name?
Circus.
Circus. Thank you.
Circus, yes.
He kind of like set the tone for,
Yeah.
in my opinion, like in
I think so.
Hollywood at least, like here's
That's
how you do
standard,
it.
yeah.
But then like even Benedict Cumberbatch as the dragon, he was incredible.
Didn't even need to do it, and he's like, "I'm getting in that."
And
suit.
he went all
dragon,
in.
Yeah,
yeah.
he
But then
really.
you watch these Naughty Dog games, and you watching God of War from 2018 and this one. It's like, dude, they're putting their heart and soul into these performances, and
Yeah.
And Chris
People are like,
Judge, I
"Oh, it's a
watched his I watched the behind the scenes video where he described his the choices that he made, like the psychology behind the choices that he made as Kratos in mocap. And he was like, I chose to walk like this because of this. I chose to stand
I
like
love
this
that,
because of...
man.
And I'm like, whoa,
He
you didn't have to
cares.
think about all that
Yeah.
stuff at all.
I
That's
wonder-
really amazing.
That's someone who loves his character.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
I
big
wonder
time.
what he's thinking when he says no. I just want to know what he feels in
Especially
that
when
moment.
it's about
when
his
it's like a
actual
long
son disappointing
pause.
him.
Because like yeah, it happens quite a few times.
I think
so
he
it
just
does.
they probably just got him in the studio and just had him say no 1,000 times.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And they're
I'm-
like,
I'm
it's-
here
it
for
feels
that.
so good every time.
You
Like
want to do
it's
that one more time, Chris? I do not.
No.
Yeah,
I do
no,
not.
no,
He says I do not.
no.
it's not mine.
You know what's great
It's so
though
good.
is as you mentioned, Dan, how each scene just kind of like captures you and grabs you. Like it just
Yeah.
reminds me of the nuance and character that they added as they rethought what God of War is. So if you go back to play the original 3 in that trilogy, but also the 2 spin-offs, Ghost of Sparta, like it's not.
I was telling Kyle that I was like that original trilogy. Like, I mean, I enjoyed my time with it more than Kyle did. But for the most part, the story is like in the motivation stuff very hollow, very hollow. pretty shallow.
Yeah.
But I mean,
that's
not why you're there. That's not the type of game that is. You know,
it's not why you're there, but they still had little. If you think back, especially to the third one.
The third one is the one I always bring up.
There are moments that it's like they're trying to do something with Kratos here. Like they're actually trying to introduce an element of depth. And
that's
like,
when Jaffe left, right? He was not part of that.
Jaffe left. Jaffe didn't.
Maybe that's why it got a little better.
Jaffe,
maybe so.
I think Jaffe only did the first one, right?
He did. I think he did both of them.
Yeah, Corey did the second one, I think, and then I forget somebody else did the third, I think, and then Corey came back.
I thought Corey did 2. Okay, I didn't know someone did 3.
But in God of War 3, you know, the villain he has to fight against at the end, and just like the battle he's got like more of an internal struggle that God of War 1 and 2 internal struggle did not exist. It was just external. Let me kill everything and brute my way through all of it. And the third one introduced like this, just a hint, and I do mean a hint of like maybe there's some nuance to this character. And then 2018 came out, and they fully went in on it. Like, no, Kratos is a very nuanced, thoughtful, deep character,
and even more growth in this.
And then in 2022, it's so crazy. Far, I've seen it too. And it just makes you appreciate it, man. It makes you appreciate how they've allowed their characters to grow.
In order
to see a lot of mediums grow up with their audience.
I love it.
Very often.
And I will say, even after you beat the main story, I highly recommend doing. Your companions that are with you will tell you what some things that they want to do. Okay. I recommend following through on that because you see even more growth from Kratos that is very gratifying to watch. Like, it's so good. Or maybe not Kratos.
I don't think I'm going to do that.
I don't know. Maybe it's somebody else.
I'm going to leave all those plates spinning in the air.
So Corey and Jaffe actually tag team the second one director-wise.
Okay.
And then it was Stig Asmussen. I don't know how to say his last name. Did the third one.
Okay. I'm not too familiar with them.
Yes, I know the name Stig. I just don't know what else he's done. But yeah, Tim, you're right. Like the third one is, I've mentioned it before. The third one is actually my favorite out of that original trilogy because
mine too, man.
It starts to roll into sort of the themes of like Kratos being more than just simply yelling and wanting to murder.
There's something where he feels like
there's that girl character. There's that young girl character.
There's a young girl character, and that like it shows a softer side of him. But it almost seems like he has regret and doesn't want to do this anymore.
Yeah.
There's something about it where the first 2 games didn't have that. The first 2 games were like, you stepped on my toe, I'll destroy your whole family. Right. And of course, those had like a revenge plot line that was hard to really buy into. Like, okay, I got it. I see what you're doing. But the third one just introduced this element of, is this really who I want to be? Like, is this what I am? And then he's kind of forced into it by the end. I was like, that was not
But also
bad.
The most visceral because literally first person like choking someone like and bashing their head in the third one.
I will say that like I played the second one the most. I don't even think I ever played the first one. The third one has the opening that made me go, oh wow, look how far these games have come.
The third one is the one I like the most out of the first 3.
Yeah, for sure.
I just because of that opening, honestly. That was a technical showcase when you're like, we're gonna start this game and you're climbing up a Colossus and
Poseidon. Yeah, exactly.
Or it's a Poseidon or something like that. Yeah. And like it's out of
climbing.
Control,
you're using Titans to scale up Olympus.
The Titans are climbing.
Because there's a cliffhanger at the end of 2.
Right.
Yeah.
Cliffhanger. They're climbing off a cliff, right? To get it.
By the way, Stig Asmussen did Jedi Fallen Order. He left Santa Monica.
Well, there you go.
It's funny how
snore of a game, right, guys?
No, nobody cares about that game.
Yeah, Game of the Year 2019.
Dumb.
Game of the Year 2019.
I agree with that. It wasn't mine, but I agree with it.
Star Wars bias. Outer
Worlds.
But it is kind of
doesn't have Star Wars bias, and he says that it's top game. So
when you have these producers and developers and directors that kind of cross-pollinate across different developers, you can. Now that you've mentioned that, I'm like, I can see where there's some crossover. There's some similarities there, like whether it's characters or the way
they take things with them that they apply to their future games. That's really cool. I love that.
I love that too. All right. Well, before we get into, we want to review how we did with our predictions, but quick hits. Anything else you're playing? Not watching yet. We'll close out stuff we're watching. Quick hits with anything else you're playing.
I also played. There's a bunny platformer on Game Pass. Called Lapin. Lapin.
I saw this one.
Lapin.
How is it? I saw it. It looks kind of interesting.
And the bunnies are actually drawn like characters from a Studio Ghibli movie, and they even say dust bunnies in the game, which is a Studio Ghibli thing from I think either Spirited Away or something like that.
What is this called?
Lapin. It's like Lapin.
I'm literally staring at the doc.
Open the document. So it's okay though if you like precision-oriented platformers where you're not doing any combat. Go stick with it, I guess. But it
looks like something my wife would like.
It's early access. The environments are kind of pixelated, and because of the early access, I encountered a lot of bugs. Not anything with the gameplay, but there's a lot of dialogue and stuff like that. And that's where it got buggy. Is like when I started talking to other characters and stuff.
I don't think bunnies can hang off the edge of something like it is in this.
No, they can't at all.
They're not ninjas. I mean,
yeah, you just stay there. Like you just jump up on it and you stay there if you hold a button a certain way, and you can like turn around and. Just
Not realistic. Not realistic.
You can.
Well, there's only one way to find out.
You can choose any animal. You know what I mean? That actually does that and make a game about them. But they're like
Sloth could do it with their little.
Right.
It'd be the slowest game known to man.
Yeah.
People were mad about Red Dead Redemption 2 walking around. Just wait till you play a sloth platformer.
Dude, I would totally play a sloth game.
Red Sloth Redemption.
I'd play that. Forever to jump.
I played that.
So I played that. I didn't play much of it though. It was like an hour, and I was like, all right, I gave it a shot. And then I played the opening of Spider-Man Miles Morales on PC. Looks and runs as amazing as the Spider-Man remastered. I mean, it's no surprise.
Yeah.
Looks incredible. I can't wait to beat this game for like 600 or 700 times.
I know what's going to happen. I'm going to do what I did with the last one. I spent like the entire month of whatever it was, September or whatever.
Yeah.
I didn't play anything new. I was just like, I'm sorry, Spider-Man has my heart right now, and that's all I played.
And I'm probably going to do the same thing.
I'm going to do the same thing, so I'm holding off on even buying it. Not because I think it's going to be super cheap later. Maybe it will, but I'm just like, I'm not even going to buy it because then it's going to distract me from all the current stuff I've got to get through.
Yeah, I know what you mean. And I'll try to control myself because I struggle with that too with these types of games.
Because here's the games that are in my playing now list, and this is not even counting the ones that I've like moved off the list. I'm like, you know what? This is officially now a backlog game. I've done that for a few of them. I'm like, I'm not gonna go back. So here's the ones that are in my currently playing because I've played them in the last week or two: Symphony of War: The Nephilim Saga, Bayonetta 3, Asterigos, The Entropy Center, Mario plus Rabbids, Lego Star Wars Skywalker, Sonic Frontiers, God of War Ragnarok. That's too many. I'm not gonna. I don't know how I'm gonna do this.
But guys, nothing came out this year.
Nothing
came out this year. This year sucks. But I will say it looks great, and that's about it. That's all you can really expect from it. Is just more greatness. And then I played the first hour and a half of Devil in Me, which is a new Dark Pictures game.
That's what she said.
Nice.
Dan was so desperate to get that one.
That's what she said.
He was looking at the notes, going, "Okay, 3, 2."
But this is the one with Jessie Buckley in it. I don't recognize any of the other actors that are in it, but she is like doing a horrible accent in it. It's really weird.
Why?
Like she's going in and out.
Yeah,
I know. She's like going in and out of her. I think she's Scottish or something, but she's going in and out of it. Most of it. But anyway, no, she's English. Whatever. She's not American. That's my point. I think she's Irish, which is really weird because the person that is in.
She's Norwegian. Let's keep going.
She's Swedish, guys. She's Danish, actually. There's somebody that's in. She's a part of a documentary crew that was invited to go to this creepy place or whatever and get some more evidence on the first serial killer in America, H.H. Holmes. And great premise, by the way. It starts with a flashback involving H.H. Holmes, and it's awesome.
That's cool.
Her leader of the documentary crew is British, and I'm like, why couldn't she just be British? I don't understand.
Yeah, that's a good point.
But they're clearly making more efforts with these games for you to be able to free roam around and platform a little more easily and stuff like that. And I feel like it's still a little rough around the edges in that. And I respect them traveling a little bit outside the box in terms of how they do the navigating in the supermassive world, where like they, normally it's kind of like you're confined to this space and then the camera changes and then you're confined to that space. This one's a little more open, and I respect them stepping outside of that. They just need to iron it out a little better. So I can see why people are kind of giving it lukewarm reviews so far.
Sad.
I mean, it's not as bad as The Quarry, which we all hated, right?
We all hated that game.
Yeah, we hate The Quarry.
I actually kind of thought it was trash.
Yeah.
Kinda. kind of.
Maybe even
Trash.
garbage.
Guys, we're being
and those aren't the
sarcastic.
same.
We love that. We
Hold
love
on.
that.
But then trash again?
Yeah.
Trash, garbage, trash?
No,
No?
not GT. Not,
I
not
can't
a full
believe
GT.
it. The Corey was so unrealistic. You can like chop off somebody's arm and like they'll be fine. Oh, it's so unrealistic. But werewolves are realistic.
In every
They'd be fine.
real life werewolf situation, that's never happened.
Dog people? Absolutely.
Oh my gosh! All right, being sarcastic, obviously. By the
I
way,
haven't got, by the
No,
way, I
we're
haven't gotten to any of the horror stuff in Devil and Me. I
Okay.
just arrived to the house.
just the
where you're
accents.
supposed to- yeah.
Just the accents has been
Just
the,
the
horror,
accents
so.
and the gameplay stuff. That's all I've done so far.
When you were correcting yourself on Monday, maybe it was Sunday. Like it reminded me because I do the same thing, but it reminded me of I was just listening to the Nateland podcast, which is Nate Bargatze's podcast, and he had Kevin Nealon on. And they were just talking, when comedians get together, they reminisce about old comedy days and like so and so from so and such a club and whatever. And that's kind of fun to listen to sometimes. Sometimes it gets a little old.
Yeah, it gets a little masturbatory.
But it does. And I do zone them out after a while. Like, oh, they're still talking about this. But anyway, overall, it's a very funny conversation. And at one point, Kevin Nealon catches himself doing that, but then it becomes like a joke they do a few times. He's like, no, it was 68. No, 65. No, maybe it was 66. It was 65. So anyway, no, it was 66. He kept going back to it. It was very like he picked up on the fact he was doing it.
Kevin's one of those comedians who will like drive a bit into the ground for it to die and then get resurrected and people laugh again. Like he's the type of guy who just repeats himself nonstop and you're like, this isn't funny anymore, and then it comes back around and it's funny again.
And now it's funny again.
Because he pushes you through the annoyed wall right back into Laughville. You know what I mean? Like, he's just like, let's just get you through it. Yeah.
His entire episode with Conan on Conan's podcast, they just couldn't even get through a serious conversation. And like at all. Like he was like they just kept going off on joking with each other, giving each other a hard time, fake scenarios or whatever. And then it got to the point where the producer was like, okay, for like a full minute, just have a serious conversation with each other.
Nah.
And Conan was like, okay, fine, for real, let's have a conversation. It was so
what
funny.
is Conan actually even doing? Because he's doing that podcast, which
Just
like
the
seems
podcast,
like it's
pretty much,
but it's like attached to TBS
I think
still.
it's a pretty big
is
hit.
it?
Oh,
I don't know about it being attached to CBS.
I don't know if it's attached to TV. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I think it's just his thing.
Because
It
he
just
doesn't
seemed
have
like kind of the theming.
Does he have a talk
like,
show still?
No.
No. He finished. He's like,
Yeah.
that's
he
over.
finished the TBS show
So
a
I
few
think
years ago.
he's just doing his podcast and whatever.
Yeah, and I think they just get enough revenue from that, and they're able to do live shows, kind of like the Always Sunny guys. So.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah.
I love Conan.
Which, by the way, the
He's
Always
so
Sunny
good.
podcast has really grown into its own thing outside of just talking about the show. It's so fun. I freaking love it.
It is so enjoyable. Yeah, absolutely.
It's really, really great.
It's almost like those guys are like, I don't know, they should maybe do a show together or something.
They should do a sitcom.
It's just got so much great comedy energy.
Yeah, it's really
Wasted,
fun. I love that.
energy.
Plus, most of the
Sitcom.
episodes now start with them like ribbing on whoever's showing up late or right.
Yeah,
on
they
time.
always roll early on
They
purpose.
roll early and then they just talk. They make fun of the person who's not there.
Exactly. Yeah. Every single time. Like they don't need to do that, but they do it as a bit now.
Yeah, it's fun. And Meg is like the mom of the group. She's great. But I like that show a lot. All right, let's talk about how we did with our Game Awards nominee predictions.
I don't want to talk about it, Tim.
Dan, you're going to talk about it the most because you have a lot to answer for. I'm just kidding. Our scores were all within 7 of each other, with the high score being 31. I'll go ahead and spoil it. Mr. Jeffrey won our competition, but it was close. Kyle was right behind him with 30, so it was 31-30. And then Derek, who's not here, R.I.P. Derek, with 27.
Obviously dead. Obviously.
Was in 3rd place, and then Dan and I were in second to last and last place. I had 26. Dan had 24. So, and that's because we picked with our heart too much, Dan. That was our problem. We went too much with our heart.
I'd rather pick with my heart than be all analytical about it. Like I'm gonna go with my heart. Just gonna go with my heart.
I will say,
it's a moral victory,
buddy. Last year I got the nomination predictions right as well, but the winner predictions I did horrible on. So I'm just saying it doesn't really matter.
None of this actually matters. It's just for fun.
That's true.
Right?
None of it actually matters.
That's why I go with the heart. This is why I go with the heart.
Someone who got 2nd place, and that's good enough. It matters.
I'm waiting to brag, basically, is what I'm trying to say. I want to get the winner part.
Sure.
So what we'll do is I want to do the predictions the episode before the awards. So the
Yeah,
awards
that's
are on
like
the
2 weeks,
8th.
2 or 3 weeks from now.
Yeah, so maybe 2 episodes from now we'll actually predict who we think will win.
Yeah.
But did anything surprise you guys from the nominees?
The only thing
The
that surprised
Xenoblade
me,
love totally blew me away.
Xenoblade Chronicles 3
I
love.
actually kind of saw that
Yeah.
happening. But the
Yes, that's my choice. It doesn't have to be
best
yours.
narrative, Elden Ring best narrative.
Yeah.
No.
What are we doing, guys?
Wait,
What do we
wait,
do?
was
It
that?
doesn't
I didn't
surprise
even
me at
actually
all.
notice. Like, seriously,
Yeah.
for real?
Yes.
That doesn't surprise me at all.
No, that's dumb.
right.
That's fucking stupid.
Well, what's narrative? What is a
Yeah.
narrative?
That's
dumb.
the thing.
But what is a
It's
narrative?
got lots of
I
writing.
thought it was
and there is
story,
no
so,
best
like-
writing.
Yeah.
No, this
category.
is dumb.
I don't know, man. I feel like if narrative is a story that's either written or spoken, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, is it the most approachable narrative? No. Is it like the most
No, you gotta do
obviously
some homework,
told?
yeah.
No. I think, and you don't, and it's all in the game though. You don't have to do anything outside of the game, but you have to. Like, it's all there, and it also it wants you to play it more than once. And that's not going to be for everybody. And I don't think this should. I wouldn't have been mad if it didn't get nominated. But I do think it's got an incredibly strong narrative. I just define it as there's a story that's being told. Is it kind of weirdly out of order and like stuff has already happened and you have to figure it out? Yes. Is it a strong plot line?
I just feel like there were other games that were very story focused that should
Yeah.
be nominated.
I'm not
for
suggesting
sure.
that it should be nominated,
I don't
let
know.
alone win. I'm not suggesting that. I'm just saying I understand it. I understand why people picked it and why some people who love
Yeah.
the
Everyone's
story of Elden Ring.
suckling on the soul's teat, and that's what happened.
I get it though, man. I do. Like
Yeah, we
we
saw that coming.
There
Yeah.
were people like Isla on EZA who prefer their stories like that. I don't want a story spoon fed to me. I want it like weird and
Yeah.
So it's like that's just some people's things too. My old roommate Bino said that all games should start telling their story like Dark Souls, and it was the very first time I was like, Bino, we can't be friends anymore.
but there's been times
I remember
since then
because like
you
we
said-
grew up liking Metal Gear Solid, and like now he's like, we should never have cutscenes in him again.
No.
I'm like, listen to yourself, man. Kojima's crying.
just to be
Don't
really
talk
clear,
about
like
Kojima sound that way.
Elden Ring is likely to be my top personal game of the year, and I don't think I'd pick it as my favorite video game story because I prefer
Same.
a plot line that's here's the beginning, here's the complication, here's the climax, here's
Like
the conclusion.
Kratos. I mean, like Kratos, like God of War. I mean,
Yeah, like God of War. Like that's my preferred way of understanding. That's why I didn't like the season 1 of The Witcher. And even though I loved it overall and kind of looking back on it and revisiting and like, okay, I enjoy it more now, but it's not my favorite way, like the season 1. And it's the same with Elden Ring. Like I think their lore and world and yes, narrative is amazing. I just don't like the way that, as far as story goes, I don't like the way it was laid out. So
Yeah, if I had a choice,
I just wanted,
I
to put it out
knew
there.
enough, even though I haven't played the game. Like I knew enough through what people have told me and what I've read and stuff like that the story isn't as present on the face of it, at least, as it is for the other nominees in that category.
I
So
will say
I was
that
very
there's a-
shocked by that.
There's a whole
honestly.
storyline with Ronnie the Witch, and it's completely optional, but start to finish, starting with meeting Blade the Wolf, who's like dedicated to serving her, all the way through to the end if you pick her ending, because if you do certain things, then that's an option at the end of the game if you beat the final boss. That I thought was an actually pretty excellent story. Like I really do.
okay.
That narrative was great, and the way it concluded, I was like, dude, this ending is fantastic.
Yeah,
But
there's
again,
a lot of really cool like little vignette stories in there, depending on the NPCs that you're.
there's also an ending where if you choose to get blessed by the frenzied flame, that you can essentially destroy everything at the end. And so you like it's very much a you craft the story, and so maybe that's why I don't prefer that. I like a story told to me. Tell me a story, and then I'll decide if I like it or not. This is very much like you decide the story.
Interesting.
So,
Well, I guess I should stop crapping on the for a quote unquote lack of story and just start calling it a bold narrative.
it just
sounds more bold than anything else. Like
Yeah,
it's weird
totally
to
different.
They're
it's weird to
always
compare
taking
them.
shots when they take
Yeah.
when they tell their narratives. That I mean, even Sekiro was very like it was a little more not formulaic, but like followable than like most of their stuff. But like even they're like not spelling everything out. They just have a really weird way that they kind of like to tell their stories, and it's their stamp. You know what I mean? It's their brand or whatever.
Gotcha.
Again, not my favorite way, but like I they're taking a shot for sure. And,
Yeah.
and I'm totally fine with
it's
it.
working
'cause,
for some
again,
people. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I also have to commend whoever voted body, the voting body for giving Plague Tale way more than I thought they would.
That's what that was going to be my
I thought they were
call.
just going to get 2 categories and that's it. Like, I
They got
really
so
did.
much
I haven't even
Now, that's
played
a
that
story.
game, and I
Now,
was
that's a
not
story.
surprised by that. Just
okay.
Only because of just the amount of people that I know who love that game. So it's
That's
like,
a
cool.
story. That's a style of storytelling that I love. Like
Yes.
that's what I want.
So I thought it was just going to be best narrative and maybe Amicia, and that's it. Like I really, an adventure, of course, but like I really didn't expect it to get Game of the Year or whatever. Like I don't know why. I just, for some reason, I already talked myself out of it getting more than that. So that was really cool to see that.
My biggest surprise was the absolute disrespect for Halo Infinite.
Yeah, I know. Even music, not even there. It's crazy.
Nothing. I got nothing.
I
no
wonder if they
action
were
either.
thinking about it, but they're like, boy, but that game's like sinking really hard right now in the community.
Yeah.
If we nominate it, they'll riot and pitchfork us. Pitchfork
maybe.
us, so.
I hope
Maybe,
not.
I don't know. Yeah.
I hope that outside forces wouldn't influence how you decide if a game is worthy of recognition or not. But I see what you're
But
saying.
yeah, but Kyle, when you brought that up in chat, because when all the nominations were announced, I was like, what the hell? When you brought that up, I was like, yep, I could see that. I could see them voting, and like as they're voting, they're like, oh yeah, well, just things jump out in the forefront of their brain quicker than a game that's kind of sinking a little bit,
Yeah.
And also, Tim, you gotta love the Neon White love. There's quite a few nominees for that one, right?
Neon White got a lot of, which it should. I mean, that game's freaking awesome. You guys are
I gotta
crazy.
play that one, dude. I gotta
so
play
good.
that one.
I get that they came out later, but the sort of blatant omissions in the RTS category there, which is why I lost some points there, because I'm like, well, clearly Tactics Ogre is going to be in there, and then I think Diofield didn't make it on there, and it's like, I'm sorry, like I know Diofield, like Metacritic wise, whatever, for some reason is in the 70s. I mean, I know that they could have been, I guess, maybe more fleshed out with that game, but I just think there's something definitely really special there.
Yeah.
And I feel like there wasn't like a crap ton of RTSs this year, so
you have to remember that the panel are the journalists making the review. So if a game didn't review well, it's just not going to get nominated, because the panel is created by the journalists who are reviewing all these games.
And I think Tactics Ogre, because it is straight up a remake, probably got overlooked there too. And not that they've done remakes before. I just think in
a
case,
reverse recency bias, maybe enough people didn't play it. Probably just the people who had review copies who got to play that game. Sufficiently enough before actually being able to cast it. So
it's one of their only chances to really honor a PC game. In these awards, like without getting a lot of console games getting in the way. So that's why I was not surprised to see Total War get nominated.
Yeah, that's why I changed.
When you said that, I wanted to change my vote because it was. I was like, oh, nuts.
I'm a little surprised that I know we pretty much all picked it except for Dan. I'm a little surprised that Mario plus Rabbids got that nomination, even though like after we made that pick, I was like, are they gonna pick that one? That seems a little weird, but they totally.
Yeah, I did pick that one. I guessed that one. Yeah. The one that I thought was a really weird omission is the game that has strategy in the title of it. Triangle Strategy not being nominated for
nothing.
Yeah, that's
the other one. That's the other one I was thinking.
They got RPG, but not Sim and Strategy. It's very weird. Very weird.
That was the other one I was thinking of. Yeah.
Yeah. Literally in the title of the
reviewed
game.
really well. It sold really well. Yeah. I know a lot of people who played it, so it's like
I don't know anybody that's played Victoria 3.
It's got the word strategy in the name.
Yeah, it's got the
word literally in the title.
In the name.
And they were thinking of it because they obviously nominated it for another award. So what happened? Like, when you saw the word strategy, you just for some reason forgot about it?
It's
not really a strategy. It is.
This is why these awards are dumb, because at the end of the day, it's also just. It's just opinions. It's just like with anything else. They're opinions. These people like them, and then it's like,
well, and how
but then
often
people get mad about it.
Complain about the reviews in our chat where we're like, look at these idiots. They gave this game a 5. Right. So these are the idiots who are controlling the votes in this show. So it's
these are the same idiots.
It's funny to me when like people like are watching the shows. Like, I don't know, man. I just don't agree with the Game Awards. It's like, nobody agrees with reviews all year. Like, no joke, you're not going to agree with the nominations. The winners, at
the other surprise I have is for the overall game of the year. I think there's 6 nominees. 5 of them, I think, I'm like, obviously this one should be up for it. Mm-hmm. A Plague Tale, Elden Ring, God of War Ragnarok, Horizon Forbidden West, Xenoblade Chronicles 3. Obviously, all of them, beloved and well deserving. Stray? Like, listen, I like Stray.
Yeah,
we all like Stray. I think all of us
even
that played
made
it really
hype
like
video for it, and I enjoyed it. And I was like, man, that's exactly what I expected and what I wanted from this honestly like top tier swimming in sevens game, like maybe just in the 8 out of 10 type of like. This game deserves a lot of love for kind of hitting above, like swinging above. What is the term? It's
Swing
like,
above your weight class.
yeah, something like that.
Something like
So,
that.
but I thought it hit with a lot of like drawbacks, but once you see the whole context, like, man, that was good. Good job for Blue 12 Studio. They nailed it. But for Game of the Year, I was just kind of like,
yeah.
It comes across to me as like
Sifu is like
yes,
crazy, but also I don't think either Sifu nor Stray should be in here. I thought Kirby was going to get in here, honestly, considering the praise for that game. I really thought Kirby.
I got to be honest, the one that I thought if they're going to put something, because they put Xenoblade in there, I thought Bayonetta 3 based on the reviews and the little I've played it so far. I'm like,
too much controversy. Too much controversy.
Maybe.
Yeah, it's too hot. It was too hot.
Too hot
for TV.
They always gotta pick the little guy in there, and I think Stray is the littlest guy. It's literally about this little cat.
Literally a little cat.
And I know that people like this game, but it's not one of those. I know a lot of y'all don't like this game, but it's not like a journey like style like game where people were talking about it like, wow, this was such a mind-bending experience and emotional. Like there are enough people out there. It won a Grammy. Like there was a lot of buzz about Journey, so it being nominated and I guess winning in some circuits kind of like made sense to me. Stray, everyone liked Stray. Everyone liked it a lot. I don't know if like it was anybody's game of the year.
I gotta be honest. When it finished, I was like, man, this game made me feel more emotional than I thought a cat could make me feel. But that was about it. Like that was about the high point was the way it ended. I was like, wow, that was good.
I really love the world. I think I would love to see that world. Like I would almost like a spin-off game of you being like a robot doing some like other kind of things, not just cat thing, like exploring that
like
world.
A combat robot who has the cat now as your buddy.
I do think that for sure. I do think that the fact that it got nominated for Game of the Year makes it a shoo-in as the winner for Best Indie. Because none of the other Best Indie nominees got nominated for Game of the Year, so that tells me, that's going to be an obvious like win for Stray. Whereas Best First Indie might go to somebody else to spread the love, like it might go to like Neon White or something.
Yeah, the debut indies. This is quite the list. Like I honestly don't know who's going to win. So you have Neon White. Norco, which by the way got rave reviews from the few reviewers that played it. That's that adventure game that's very pixelated. And anyway, Stray, Tunic, and Vampire Survivors, which a lot of people love as well.
I think Vampire Survivors is on Game Pass. I saw it somewhere. It's not a pretty game. Like it's very crude.
It's also a $2 game.
It's like a bullet hell.
When you do actually pay for it.
It's a bullet hell game, and you get overwhelmed very quickly. Yes.
Yeah, so Sifu and Cult of the Lamb and Neon White and Stray and Tunic, those are up for Best Indie. Yeah. Regardless of if they're new or not. And so I could see like you're saying, Stray winning here when you could maybe make an argument that, boy, any of the other 4 should get the win over Stray there. Yeah. There's some kind of love for Stray in the panel that made these nominees that it's going to win something. I don't think it's going to win Game of the Year. I think Game of the Year, we'll make our predictions later. I don't think that's going to win Game of the Year though. And I think it is going to win Best Indie, even though I would personally pick Cult of the Lamb, Neon White, Sifu, or Tunic. And I played Stray and I finished it and I enjoyed it, but I'd pick all 4 of those over that one.
That's interesting. I would definitely pick Sifu over Stray 100%. That game rules so hard. But I think that what if kind of like this happens at the Oscars, right? Like what if Elden Ring and God of War Ragnarok splits the vote at Game of the Year and it ends up going to Stray, like or a Xenoblade or something? That would be hilarious.
Yeah, we gotta start bonding together, everybody. Start putting it out there that everyone choose something. Yeah.
Please choose one of those things.
I think
even if Horizon won out of those 3, it would still surprise the hell out of me. I'd be like, really?
Sure.
Got out of what?
Yeah.
That would tell me that the voters, all of them, like just went one way or the other to the point where another one could sneak in. Kind of like what happened with Saving Private Ryan and Thin Red Line. Both of them split the vote, and then Shakespeare Ass and Love, stupid ass movie, won Best Picture that year.
One of those movies are obviously a better like war movie. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Exactly. One of those is for me at least.
It's the one we're still talking about. You know?
The snooty ones, they love Thin Red Line more. You know, yes, it's art. Yes.
You know, speaking
of art, I'm really proud of. You guys can check Facebook. I'm really proud of this one, by the way. Just throwing that out there. I think Jeff is especially going to like what's in the left corner there.
Oh, so. Okay. Yeah.
Wait, what happened?
The Make it
Thumbnail.
thumbnail.
Oh,
That's
thumbnail.
awesome.
Okay.
Do you get it? Do you get it?
Oh man.
You got
Freaking
it?
Ray Fiennes. Oh, that's amazing.
It's not Ray Fiennes. It's Voldemort.
It's
Voldemort.
No.
He should not be named, sir. Put some respect on that. So I
No.
do
Chef-
think
Chef Voldemort.
so you mentioned art, and I was looking at best art direction too,
yeah.
and
I forgot, by the way, when we made our predictions, I forgot that art direction and direction was different with different things.
oh
God,
yeah,
God damn it.
yeah.
but this one's weird. Like outstanding creative and or technical achievement in artistic design and animation.
Mm-hmm.
What?
I don't know, man. Like that description of that category, I'm like, you could literally put any game in here. Like any
Yeah.
game that was decent.
If you have a game with art in it,
outstanding creative and or
literally all
technical
video
achievement
games.
and artistic
Yeah.
design. So something about this category just kind of rubs me the wrong way, and that's why. We definitely don't do it perfectly, but that's why I really like that we try to separate out visual categories, and we probably need to revisit that again
Yeah.
this year. Like, how should we separate this out? Is it like best performing game now versus like best
creative.
I think
animated
last
art,
something like that.
I think the way we did it last year was really good because didn't we kind of do
It was like
we do
realistic
games-
versus animated kind of.
yeah like that exactly like a Horizon Zero Dawn versus like a Pentiment or something.
Just like
Right,
best
exactly.
visual style instead, and then best overall visuals, like because
Yeah.
style is different. Like this is style behind me.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah,
And
right.
So like for example, on this list are games like Scorn on the one hand, and then elsewhere you
Score.
have something like Stray. You have Elden Ring, God of War, and Horizon.
Yeah.
But I look at Scorn and I'm like, technically that achievement is not impressive. I'm sorry, but it's just not. Like it's not technically impressive. It is artistic design, very impressive, and like the sound and stuff like that's really cool.
The
They clearly have
squelching,
there's
yeah.
a source material. I understand, like,
Squishies.
and maybe they're ripping off a previously created thing. I get it. I get there's the
Yeah, it's the Geiger whatever.
Geiger.
Geiger.
the
But
alien
all that to
stuff.
say, like, it's weird for me to see Scorn in this technical achievement and animation. I'm like, what? Those things didn't stand out to me. Like, there's no. So I don't know. That's why this is kind of a weird blend.
I didn't think of it, but when I heard the nomination, I was like, oh, that makes sense. Like for some reason, my brain just immediately went, yeah that makes sense because just I don't know.
So I just wanted to, like, as you look at the Game Awards, those are the kind of things that I think this is what makes the Game Awards, by the way, interesting. Not whenever I say this kind of stuff, sometimes people take it as like, well, at least they have something. I'm like, I'm not saying I wish it didn't exist. I'm just like, to me, this is part of the fun, is talking about what are these categories? Who should be in here? Who shouldn't be? What do they mean by this? Like, that's all this is, by the way.
Yeah.
I am so glad it exists. And I would rather it exist.
With any award show, like movie related or whatever, it's like, it's just, well, at least it gets an interesting discussion going. I'm not saying it's end all be all at all. So,
and I am curious how it all plays out. That's for sure.
Also, I think it's very interesting. I don't know that the last time that they've nominated a single player game as a fighting game, Sifu getting in there is really interesting.
Yeah.
Game?
The rest are like player
versus fighting. Yeah, that doesn't make any sense.
That doesn't make any sense
because the description says for best game design, primarily around head-to-head combat. Sifu has some elements where it's just one-on-one, I guess, but it's an action game.
Yeah,
it's an action game, and I think it'll win that, which we'll make the predictions later. But like fighting game, it's not.
Fighting game is Street Fighter. It's
and
Mortal
it probably
Kombat.
will win that, so it can win something this year. And it's gonna all those King of the Fighter fans are gonna lose it. So
I hope so. That'd be hilarious.
All 4 of them.
Yes. You know what's gonna win is JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. That's what's gonna win. And then,
that game is. I looked up reviews for all those, like the scores, to be like, where did these games come from? JoJo's is crapped on so much.
Oh well, that's an anime, so that's based off of an anime or a manga, which is then the anime and etc. So.
But that game got crapped on so much by reviewers. I think it's really funny that it's in here at all.
Oh, this is cool. I didn't even see this category, best adaptation. So we didn't predict it, obviously, but. Arcane.
Yeah, I included it for us to predict because I thought it was
freaking love. I'm about to rewatch Arcane again. I love that show so much.
Yeah.
Cyberpunk, Edge Runners show, Cuphead show, Sonic the Hedgehog 2, and Uncharted. Well, at least 3 of those I think are worthy of.
I think one is the clear front runner though. Like we're looking at a category that's like, oh, this is Arcane's category.
Isn't it Arcane Cyberpunk? Aren't those both kind of on equal plane in terms of?
I like Cyberpunk Edge Runners a lot, but Arcane is like universally like
even
people that don't watch
the League of Legends.
The hell out
there
of
are
that
way
show.
more League of Legends like people out there than there are like the
Cyberpunk.
crossover of cyberpunk and anime.
I
lovers,
hope.
Yeah.
Now you could be right, and I'm with you. Like there's definitely the possibility with the Halo issue and with this issue where it's like outside forces will determine what wins.
Could
Maybe,
be.
but I like to think in my super positive mindset at the moment that it's truly just based on which thing was the better adaptation of its source material and created a better like experience as a show. And I don't know.
I mean, I love like just anime, just straight up. I mean, you guys know Kyle also on the same page. We love anime. Jeff is actually the biggest fan, really. I'm
the expert. I'm the anime expert.
And Arcane like blew my mind. Like not even just the story, because there's so much intricacy there because they already had that lore already like all set up and everything. But like the visual style of that is insane. It is completely and utterly insane.
It's one of the most beautiful shows or movies I've ever seen.
And I feel that way exactly about Cyberpunk. I think
great.
It's super beautiful.
Yeah.
The story is really out of this world.
I really love
If
it.
you're talking about like trying to capture the vibe or something of the existing property, home run. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I feel like
true, Kyle, because it says recognizing outstanding creative work that faithfully and authentically adapts a video game to another entertainment medium. Arcane does to League of Legends. Like League of Legends is nothing like the show Arcane. It's not. It's nothing like it at all. Now I understand a lot of the characters and lore they've built that are there, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it took this online MOBA thing and turned it into a super compelling, like Game of Thrones level depth of characters and intrigue and politics and backstabbing. It turned it into something that wasn't there. And Cyberpunk is building on a world that was created that was already amazing. And so that's interesting because I think you're right. Cyberpunk then would be probably a more faithful adaptation.
And if we're going to keep on throwing this term around, the recency bias could easily,
that show just came out like less than a month ago. So like,
because Arcane
still
came
on our
out
brains
at the end of last year, right?
Yeah, that's a last year show.
December, I think, last year.
I will say if
not that people have shut up about that show. People we're still talking about that show.
I will say that if they end up picking any of the other nominees as a winner, except for Uncharted, I will not be surprised. Like, because even Sonic the Hedgehog 2, people love. Like, people that are Sonic fans love that movie. So I could see that even winning too. Like, even if I don't care for that movie that much. But
guys, it was not a good movie.
But Uncharted should not win anything anywhere except for most okay movie I've ever seen in my life. Like, that's what are we doing?
Yeah.
Oh my God, that is what you're referencing. It's
Sonic the Hedgehog 2 was objectively not a good movie. It was actually fun for kids to watch. That was fine, but it is not like Uncharted.
Shouldn't be winning awards.
Uncharted was average to above average, somewhere in there.
Tim, did you see the after credit scene though? Do you see who's? Do you know?
I
Do you see who's showing up?
I
do you
saw,
see who's showing up?
I saw. Yes.
Hey, how's it going? I got a mustache.
Yeah.
Hey, say hi to your mother for me, okay?
Maybe you could grow one day, okay? Yeah.
I got a mustache.
I'm really I'm out of breath all the time.
Hey there, donkey.
Hey,
say hi to mother for me.
Oh, you're a bartender?
Don't bring up the funky.
You gonna give me a drink?
Get real mad.
Don't bring up the funky.
Dude, he gets pissed when you bring up.
Dude, that actually reminds me though. I gotta watch Cyberpunk. That way I can. I gotta watch.
I think you'll really like it. It's so good.
Yeah.
I gotta watch it. And then Cuphead show, of course, for visuals alone.
And again,
if that one wins, I'll be like, sweet. That's a really.
It's not just visuals for that one. I think that one is a faithful adaptation, so I could see that one getting a win too if they felt like voting it.
Absolutely.
I mean, and the style is literally based off of like old timey like Disney cartoon, like that.
Yeah,
old style
the old black and white like Disney when when Walt Disney was still alive, being openly anti-Semitic and stuff. That was fun.
Yeah. No,
I actually kind of like that category, regardless of my thoughts on the nominees. I like the adaptation.
That's cool.
category.
Yeah, that's why I added it here. I was like, that's a cool category. I don't think we've done that before. So that was I wanted to include it.
All right. Well, the only other one that we didn't talk about yet was best role playing. Pokemon Legends, Live Alive, Live Alive. Triangle Strategy, Elden Ring, Xenoblade Chronicles 3. You know what's funny is we predicted Elden Ring because we just know how the Game Awards folks think. But it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, technically it is an incredibly deep RPG, yes, but I think of it more as an action RPG because it's.
Yeah, it's the same as I said last week. It's not an RPG, guys.
To their credit, they do say
not an RPG.
Best game designed with rich player character customization and progression. So that's what they want. Rich character customization and progression. It has that. So there you go. All
If
right.
it's not an RPG, then Skyrim's not an RPG. Then Mass Effect's
You're
not
right.
an RPG. Then
You're right.
you're going down
Listen.
a really weird rabbit hole there.
I gotta stop.
Listen.
I gotta stop pulling at that thread. Is what you're saying.
If I don't see a menu and it says attack, magic, items, it's not an RPG. It's
Throw it
not
out
an
the window.
So
RPG.
it's not a fantasy game, you mean? Because that's what you just described.
Listen, Kyle.
All right.
Magic.
Last thing I wanted to say is I like that Shredder's Revenge got not just action but multiplayer, because that is a really fun multiplayer game.
That's fantastic. That's
I really hope that game wins
good
something.
vibes.
Yeah, me too. I really hope that's why it was nominated for multiplayer, to give it something, because like I don't think it's going to win action.
what else is in multiplayer?
Yeah.
The shooters, all the shooters basically.
God damn it! Yeah,
is there a best shooter category?
Yeah, well, there's an action one that shooters would have been in. Multiplayer. Where the hell is it? Why can't I find it?
That might be rough though, because I mean, I don't know. I feel
Multiplayer
like
there it is.
has Call of Duty, Multiverse,
Yeah, COD, Multiverse,
Overwatch 2, Splatoon 3, and then Shredder's Revenge.
So Splatoon 3 could win that one, actually.
Yeah.
People love that one.
People do love Splatoon.
Yeah. Whatever.
I don't think there's the outpouring of love for a free-to-play Overwatch. I don't think Overwatch 2.
I'm surprised.
I'm surprised it's in here.
It's on here. Yeah. You want to talk about like major controversy? People like.
Yeah. I think Ninja Turtles wins that
in
one.
October.
Ninja Turtles will win that one.
I hope so.
I hope so too.
What a fun game!
How seamless that was to just jump in with anybody. And how smooth it was. I mean, it was just
if I have people who come over and like we're just chatting or whatever, I'll literally just throw in that game and pass out controllers.
Yeah, there are 2 multiplayer games
super
this year
easy.
that I rolled credits with my kids, and one was Kirby and one was Ninja Turtles. Those are the 2 multiplayer ones that I.
Nice.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Alrighty, well, let's talk about some headlines. There's a whole bunch of stuff. I kind of want to start with The Witcher 3 next gen update coming, because listen, there's been rumors about that. They've been saying it's coming, don't worry guys, it's on the way, but it's delayed. But it's actually going to arrive buzzer beater right before the end of the year. They said it's coming in 2022. It's coming in 2022, and here they are, December 14th. But the cool news is that if you already own it on really any console, you're going to be able to upgrade it for free on your new console, and then on PC, of course, you already have most of the stuff there.
And honestly, this is a game I've owned on like 3 different consoles, and I just never. That tells you how horrible I am at wanting to beat this game. Like,
yeah,
I already own it everywhere. This is going to be a free update for me. Like, and I still haven't.
Yeah, for me, The Witcher 3 is at least as far as my video game experience goes, it was like video game experience changing. I won't say life changing. That's over dramatic. But it was video game life or video game experience changing. Like I had never played anything like it, and I've only played 1 or 2 games since then that had that same impact. For me, I think it's been The Witcher 3, Breath of the Wild, and Elden Ring. Those are the 3 that kind of hit me with that same like, I've never seen anything like this.
And it's the way they kind of get you to explore the world, right? Like with Zelda, it was
exactly
like climbing basically anything. With Witcher, it was like, like the side quests and the way you explore like the world, and then the side quests and the stories, and actually they're interesting is really, it's because so many games like are just kind of like the world's just there. Are they? Okay. Yeah.
No one talks or remembers about any of
No one
those
remembers
games.
that. Now let's talk
Jeff's
about
like,
how
those are
Red
on my
Dead 2
worst.
should be up there. Let's talk about that.
That's how real open world is done. Is those games.
I do own that on PC now. And I do plan on some point doing like, I'm just going to do a full Witcher 3 replay through. I can't wait to do that. Just got to find the right time to do it when I kind of don't have things that are my type of games coming out. There's going to be those
Steam Deck verified, just FYI.
It is
verified.
Oh, Kyle Deck verified.
So Kyle Deck, that's more important, by the way, than Steam Deck is Kyle Deck verified. So that's one I do want to replay. I'm very excited for that. But
that's not a game that you can juggle with other games, right? Like if you're gonna go in,
you could.
on Witcher,
you can if you played it before, especially. But yeah,
it's. I mean, it's just like Spider-Man or any, in terms of like it being an open world with like anything that you walk towards, you're gonna have a fun time doing. You know what I mean? So.
Gotcha.
So you could play it, alongside something else, or kind of stop.
Depends on what the other
it.
thing is, don't you think? Like I wouldn't play.
I do. Yeah, I wouldn't play 2 giant, Western RPGs at the same time.
Sure.
That sounds super annoying. Like don't start Horizon and then Witcher.
Yeah, anything that has you like balancing an inventory and loot and leveling up and skill trees Maybe don't
Yeah.
do that at the same time.
Yeah, maybe have a
Um,
racer on the
But
side
like
or something.
Pentiment is a
Ah,
great
yeah.
like Pentiment would be a good one to play alongside it probably.
Yeah, yeah.
Gotcha.
Well, the other big stuff with this one is it's not just a graphical update. There's going to be like new missions and new
That's right.
swords and new armor and
Really?
maybe I hear you're going to get to turn your face into Henry Cavill, who's going to always be our Gerald, right, guys? He's never
Ugh.
leaving.
Oh wow. Okay.
This
Never
DLC
leaving,
aged
guys.
poorly. This
No.
DLC aged poorly already.
I
Liam
want-
Liam Mesworth.
I was gonna say
over
I
there.
want Liam actually as the DLC.
Yeah, it better be Liam now. And they
That'd be
also said
amazing.
so the way that it was worded was there's going to be content that's like Netflix related, and then they also talked about and other content. So it makes me think there's going to be other like side stuff that maybe
Yeah.
hit the cutting room floor at the last second, like side quests, nothing major,
Yeah.
And they do a really good job of re-releasing these enhanced editions. Like The Witcher 2 enhanced edition, it had like 2 or 3 hours added onto the third act or
That's
whatever
right.
of the game,
Yeah.
like, and
Whoa.
it changed the entire ending and everything like that. So it's like they're not afraid to go back and retcon their own games and add in like extra stories and not charge you for it. So
Now,
Wow.
how much do we want to bet that there will be issues, some jank or some kind of technical issues with this upgrade?
yeah, I don't know. I mean, they said that they were hoping to fix a lot of issues because I'm playing it on PC and I started one on PS4 to get ready for PS5 like earlier in the year, and I was still running into missions that just wouldn't complete. Like, all these years later, so it's like it's still like such a big game. It's hard to get every
it
like
is.
Skyrim. You're gonna pick
Yeah.
up that game, and sometimes that quest item is not gonna be in that satchel, and there is no
Mhm.
reloading to fix it.
You know what's crazy is when you first played that game in 2015, 2016, the inventory system, the skill upgrade system, I mean, it was so obtuse and it was
Yeah.
not intuitive. And I remember being like, it's a good thing I friggin' love this game that I'm willing to battle through these menus and the text size and all that. And they've improved
changed
so much of
everything.
it. Yeah.
It's so streamlined now and so easy to
Yes.
use and so spelt out for you that I'm like, these
But it
kids,
was
they got it easy with this Witcher these
But
days.
I know it was not that way when I played it. This is not your grandfather's Witcher 3.
Same. I beat it before all those major menu
Me too.
upgrades. Yeah. And
I
so
almost-
when I went back and like restarted it like years later, I'm like, what the
Well, I remember when I played the Blood and Wine, I was like, oh, they must have added new menu systems for Blood and Wine, but I realized, oh no, they updated it for the
Yeah.
whole Witcher experience.
Yeah.
It's just
Oh,
that's
they
when
sure did.
I saw it.
I almost want to time my replay with Jeff though, because I didn't. I'm guessing. So Jeff, you've never played it at all, or you only played a little
I
bit?
played like 3 hours of it. Yeah,
Okay.
which is nothing. That's pretty
Because
much nothing.
I never got to the DLC. I've not done
Yeah.
either of the DLCs.
You'll
so
like
it
'em.
would be fun
Like
to
'em.
Yeah.
redo them and then go.
The
right into
DLCs
those.
are most people say are like the best part of that game. So
Hearts
Yeah,
of
yeah,
Stone
yeah.
is a really good story, and then Blood and Wine is almost like a 3.5. It truly
Yeah.
opens up a full other area. Which, by the way, I skipped a lot because I was like, I can't do. Like, I remember doing the main story, and then I saw all
Mhm.
these things, all these question
Yeah.
marks, so much on the new map. I'm talking about the Blood and Wine map. I was like,
Yeah,
I can't do it. I'm just gonna wrap this
Yeah.
thing up. Like,
yeah.
as much as I love this, I got to move on with my life.
It's and not to say anything that there's wrong with the original. Like the original story is like really, really, really good, and like it's
Yeah.
just basically you investigating, trying to find like your surrogate daughter, and the links and the stuff that you go through are just kind of crazy. And then
Well,
when
and it's in the
when
midst of a major
culminates,
conflict too. It's in
It's in the midst of a major conflict and war torn,
and you don't care really
whatever.
about either side, which I kind of like that too.
Yeah, you're not supposed to, by nature or whatever. But like, yeah, it's really something, and everything about it is just working really well, and everything, all the side stuff is really written well, and it's just one of the best written games ever. And if you're really looking for a story, like even Skyrim's not written like this. Like Skyrim's like all the story is reading those dumb books. If you want to read all the in game books to like get the story, that's great. But like ultimately, what's the story of Skyrim? Like you have like magical voice and you kill dragons because
You're
dragons
awake.
are bad.
Oh,
You woke
you're
up.
awake.
That's it. There's not a lot of depth to it. You know what I mean?
Skyrim
Like,
is
there's a
dope.
lot of lore and world building and stuff like that. But like Witcher has really good character growth. Like the Dragonborn is a one-dimensional cipher character. Gerald of Rivia is like a totally three-dimensional character whom is just rugged on the outside, but much like in the Netflix series, he's just got a real just heart for this little girl who he's gonna raise and make a good lady, and it's awesome. This is a good game. But yeah, let's talk about more games that came out 10 years ago.
And by the way, I wanted to mention
Okay.
Witcher 2. Witcher 3 doesn't make you do this that I can remember at least. Witcher 2 makes you pick a side in the major conflict going on between two sides, and it plays out dramatically differently depending on which side you pick. So and I did play them both because I was like, I want to see the other side, because like you have to, and then the other side will hate you, and it will carry over into the third game.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, and they will not like you a lot.
Yeah.
So so anyway, but in the third one, of course, like Kyle said, there's a much more personal mission that he's on. I like that.
Yeah.
I like that
And it
he
gets
is
big though, you know.
I like that
because
he is a character, and it has his own motivations and own personality. He is not a blank face. You created him, like grunting avatar of you,
Right.
who's like either silent or just generic. Like he is a fully fleshed out character, and you just happen to be
Absolutely.
controlling him. And I like that. I don't want that in every game, but I like that about Kratos. I like that about Geralt. Like that's compelling to me. As far speaking of stories, you know, that's one big weakness talking about Elden Ring being up for narrative. There's not really a strong set of characters there if you include your main character. You're just kind of a blank face behind armor.
You're just there to facilitate stuff. Yeah.
You're facilitating the story. All right, let's keep moving here. Good news, guys. Sony is working on NFT and blockchain tech.
Oh, thank God. Thank God.
Right,
That-
as
you know what?
people were starting to care. It's so great how we turned
Sony-
around as a society and now are all in on this.
Yeah.
No, we're
Sony and
not.
Square filling the void that we need them
need
to
it.
fill, right? Because you
Yeah.
know they're just doing the
And they're like
Lord's
Charlie
work.
Day
Doing the
going,
Lord's
"Oh,
work."
so filled for you." Yeah, so
Oh,
there's that,
God.
but there's also on the flip side with Sony, it does seem like as far as PS5 availability, all those scalper bots that are out there grabbing every PS5 available, they're starting to lose interest or slow down. I think the profit margin is getting much
Sure.
lower.
Yeah.
I'm really mad it took this long. So.
Yeah, me too.
2 years, right? 2 years.
They should have done
2 years
the Steam
exactly.
Deck.
It's November. Yeah, you're right.
They should have done it with the Steam whatever.
Well,
whatever
and
they
then
did
to
with Steam
watch
Deck.
the Steam Deck do it as well as they did, you know what I
Right.
mean? And like it was so effective, and you heard nothing about scalpers, about the entire situation. It's like, okay, so everyone better do it this way, period. Like I don't
Yeah.
want,
Right.
I never want a rat race ever again to get a console. Everyone's talking about new Switches next year, and I'm like, you guys are crazy. I don't
You know what it was
Every
about the way
game can run
Steam
like
Deck did it?
Pokemon going forward. I never want to go through buying a console again, especially not next year.
Like obviously the demand for PS5 was much greater than any other console, especially a brand new one
Yeah.
like Steam Deck. I understand that. But what they did was they created a line, and they didn't put a cap on the end of that line and said, sorry, if you miss getting in line, you have to wait till the line opens up again. Like that created a lot of stress and anxiety and just
Yeah. Yep,
impossibleness. What they need to do is just create a line, make it the line as long as you need to make it. And people can just get in line. And so then like, hey, yours is going to come in Q1 of 2021. That's
Yeah.
when we're
The important thing is being able to get into the line at all.
That's what I'm saying.
And,
That's what
and
I'm
you're
saying.
an actual human being.
Yep, I
like,
put my $20
Yeah.
down, and I'm going to wait until this time.
And I
Yes.
wonder how much stress they get from like shops where GameStop's like, well, you swore that we were gonna get this many, so you better send us this many, so they can't like ever predict how many like Sony's gonna have for their website. And I'm not trying to like justify it. I'm just wondering like how much of this is
Right.
is an unfixable machine, you know, because
I
like
think
Steam Deck
Sony-
didn't have to answer anybody. They're like, you can't buy this in
Right.
stores. You
Well, I
have
think
to buy it
that's-
from us.
That's a
you
good
know?
point.
I think that's maybe perhaps the thing is like they really should have put in the effort of being like, hey, listen, retailers, very sorry, but like
Well,
these
especially
shenanigans.
with what everyone was going, especially with COVID, it's
Yeah.
like no one's going to your dumb stores. So, you know, if you want a PS5, you got to buy it from us. You
Here's
know?
the
I would have
website,
been
yeah.
totally fine with that. Yeah.
Yeah. So
That's a
but
good point.
it's basically the mentality of like, well, people are gonna just buy this, so who cares? We're getting the money for it. That's clearly what the mentality was. They were like, whatever. I mean, we're getting the
You're
money,
not
so who
wrong.
cares? And it's
You're
like,
not
well,
wrong.
that's just ignorant though, because you're dealing with a-holes who are buying them to sell them for a huge markup. It's like you kind of have to care a little bit, because then people are gonna just be sour on your platform, right?
Yeah,
Or
because exactly, man. Because Sony
Well,
can
I
they
am
can
sour
lift their
because of
hands
the
all
lack
they
of
want. They
care,
can
you
kind of
know?
do this all they want, but it's gonna make us feel negatively towards them.
it's the
just is.
PS3
Yeah,
era.
yeah.
It's the PS3 era, you know, that cockiness. And it's like, guys, you gotta you did it once, you know.
And
Yeah, come on.
Microsoft's not much better. I think maybe you can go on their website and get one delivered to you like in a week now, but like you can't get one in any stores or anything like that. You can't, like, it is not the Xbox Series X. I think you can go get S's anywhere. I think they're falling out of people's heads.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
like the X's I think are still hard to get unless you buy directly from Xbox's website. And again, we would have to do a shadow check right now, but like when I checked a couple weeks ago, you could buy one, but you had to get it in like a bundle. You know what I
will
mean?
check
So
Amazon.
It's
for the Series S, people are breaking into cars and leaving them in there. That's how bad.
Yeah, that's how I got mine. Actually, someone broke into my house.
They're like, here you go.
Wow,
we'll hook it up
right.
for you. Too.
Next gen, baby.
So on Amazon, it says available via invitation.
Yeah.
Or available by invitation. So yeah, it's not just like
you
it's
can't
not
just
there.
you can't just run out to the store and get one at Walmart. You know what I mean?
Some sort of
like
queue to get in for it.
These things are still very hard to get. You know.
Well,
so
speaking of the Series S for Xbox, Black Friday deals are going to include $50 off of those. So, like Kyle said, not only are they readily available, they'll also be readily available and cheaper.
I think it's a good option. I mean, we have
and you guys. Yeah, I think do three of us. There's two of us. Is just Dan and I, or is it you too, Jeff? You have a Series S?
Yes.
Yeah, so three of us have a Series S, and that's how we Xbox game. And just coming from us, like it's a great system. Buy it. If if you want to get in the door and play Xbox games, like for $250 for a 4K machine or 4K, I don't know. I don't want to get into all that. Like, please, like that is the way to do it, you know. And don't listen to these headlines that are talking about like, trust me, Microsoft isn't suddenly going to go, well, screw the Series S then, you know, like whether it's an albatross or not for this generation, it is what it is at this point. Go ahead and pick one up. You know?
Here's the thing. So my first Xbox that we ever owned, period. I played the entire Gears of War series, and then more importantly, the newest Gears of War 5. Beautiful game, gorgeous. The newest Forza, gorgeous. They played on the Series S just fine, like completely fine.
Beautiful. To think that there's a world out there that there's a better looking version of the game, which there is on the Series X, obviously. That game looked wonderful on the S.
Yeah,
I can't even imagine it looking better. And I played Gran Turismo 7, and that game looks great too. And the Series S version of Horizon and Gran Turismo 7, very close in terms of.
You sound like one of those 30 FPS poors over there. That's what you sound like.
Oh, no, is that coming through?
I'm just kidding.
I went to a dialect coach. I'm supposed to be getting that out of me.
So basically, the point is like the Series S is plenty strong. It's gonna play the games.
I love hearing you guys say that. It actually reminds me that maybe I need to grab one because we still have a Xbox One X. My son has an Xbox One S. Honestly, those have kind of handled everything fine, and I do most of my like newer Game Pass gaming on my PC. But it's still it's not a bad investment to grab one of those. Maybe throw the
if it's an extra Xbox room system, it's totally great. If it's not your main system, like a lot of us, you know, main on the PS5 just because that's just what we know or whatever, you know, like having that Series S is a great option. Yeah, and again, like when I'm playing Halo, at no point am I like, boy, I'm playing the bad graphic version of Halo. I'm like, whoa, these graphics are really good. Like, wow, I'm really impressed. They look better than this somewhere else. If anything, it makes me want a Series X. So like the Series S is just kind of what is ending up being a stepping stone to making sure I'm playing Starfield, you know, on that best looking system. But you know, to say that those two games are gonna play completely differently altogether, you know, they probably just won't. You know, they'll probably be pretty comparable.
It's almost like people talking about the Switch versus like, you know, PS5 and Xbox Series SX, you know, there's clearly a gap there. So it's almost like, big time. So, you know,
major gap. There was a gap between the last gen and the Switch, for being honest. Like there was a gap there between PS4 and Xbox One and the Switch.
My favorite thing to remind people is that game came out outdated, or that system came out outdated.
That system came out outdated.
Just like the Wii U, just like the Wii, that's been their thing for a while now. And people are like, I don't understand why we can't get Call of Duty on the Switch. I'm like, because they literally won't run, guys. They just
You have to treat the Nintendo console at the moment, unless they change, their console at the moment is like, it's a portable console that happens to be able to launch up to your big screen if you wanted to. Like that's kind of just how you have to think of it.
Yeah, that's good.
Then it makes it feel way less bad.
The deck has proved that you can have something a bit beefier and have games that look decent.
The deck also only lasts a couple hours and gets really hot.
Sure.
Boy, does it get loud.
And I love my deck, but like we're still a long way away from having like a truly next gen 6 hour long, you know, playing system that isn't going to cause 3rd degree burns on your hands.
I think
it's so weird how they can't figure that out, but our phones are like amazing. I don't.
I don't
get hot too, though.
My phone gets pretty hot sometimes.
I think just battery technology needs to like jump to the next level.
By the way, every time I do like one of the major updates, I still have an iPhone 11 over here, and when I just got the update recently, and my battery life all of a sudden is super poor.
Yep.
So I'm like,
that's because they want you to get a new one.
They're building in those deaths.
sent me like a text spike.
That's how
like,
they do it. That's how Apple does it. I remember when I had a 3 or whatever. It was a long time ago.
Sabotage.
And then 5 or 6 came out, and suddenly my battery life was like half an hour. It felt like I was like, "This is you guys are clearly trying to get me to get a new phone."
It is because the life of those batteries obviously, starts to deteriorate pretty quick. After.
I mean, I'll get it. I don't know why you're doing this to me though.
You're speeding up the process a little bit. Yeah,
I think it is also in the settings too. When they update it, like they'll add new settings or like they'll switch things.
Probably running more background stuff. That's
I
true.
swear I would hold on to a phone for like 4 or 5 years if like the batteries would just like last.
Me
you know
too,
what I mean?
man.
Like,
Yeah.
I don't need to read my emails quicker than they already get read.
Right.
So
Don't you
Everything's pretty a little too immediate for us.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, solitaire still works the same as it did before.
It's not any quicker, I swear.
Nope.
I just got I currently have a Samsung S20 Plus. I think it's like the little bit bigger one, but it's not a Note because it's not huge.
Yeah.
And that was a great, reliable phone, incredibly fast, whatever. But the camera is ass. So I got a Google Pixel 7 that I've been working on the last like day and a half, and it runs just the same speed. It's like we don't even need new phones anymore, just new cameras at this point.
Yeah, that's what you're buying. You're buying like the camera.
Exactly.
In a lot of ways, you're also buying just a clean device that doesn't have all of your cached files and saved stuff. Like you're just kind of like clearing out all the old pictures, put them in the cloud.
Feels very freeing to have a new homepage and like.
It almost sounds like all you have to do is factory reset your device like once every 2 years.
Just let it flow, man.
I do have whatever. I forget what number we're on here, iPhone wise, but these newer ones do have 5G, and 5G
is the newest. Is it 13 or 14?
Mine has 5G, and it never 14? Is on 5G because Denver is not ever.
Oh, really? Is the coverage bad?
For Verizon, like I have pretty bad coverage. You know?
Do you? Okay. Yeah, because I noticed that it does go in and out between LTE and 5G. So I do sometimes. It's like half and half, but yeah.
I get 5G sometimes. Yeah.
I have kind of the same problem with AT&T, which is so
5G
weird.
was supposed to give us. I thought 5G was supposed to like microwave us or something.
Yeah, exactly. It's supposed to turn our brains.
I don't have a left ear anymore. I only have one ear, but
sure.
I have one ear too, but I have it on both sides of my head.
Oh, okay,
so
that's good.
It's really weird. One's always facing inwards.
I have 2 dicks. How did that happen?
5G.
That's a Fallout character. Jeffrey 2 Dicks.
What not?
He's a ghoul. Hey there, smooth skin. It's 2 dicks.
Smooth skin.
It just sounds like you're describing the character at the end of Inside, as that you're rolling around. Phil Spencer said some things this week, guys. One of the things he said was that he's open to committing to Call of Duty on PlayStation in the longer term. We're still talking about this, so
yeah. I you know what? It used to be fun. It's not fun anymore.
Jimmy is not satisfied until he gets what he wants. Jimmy will get what he wants.
We want our exclusive content just for
I feel
us.
like after the internet ridiculed him, we stopped hearing from him really quickly, which I thought was pretty funny. He's like, all right, I gotta chill out, everybody.
Like, oh, shit.
Yeah.
All right,
well, everyone's calling me a big baby. I better chill out.
Something else that I think Microsoft, they're still planning their streaming device, which is essentially just a box where you could do all your xCloud gaming. Still going to be in the $100 range. Like, I don't know, man. This to me, if they're still planning, I think they still are. It seems to me like you'd be much better off just getting an app put out on every device you possibly can, like a Game Pass Cloud app, and put it out. And that way you don't have to manage yet another piece of hardware and come to be able to buy more hardware that you're producing and sending out to stores. Like, I don't know. Maybe that's worth it. My gut tells me just create a high-level app that you make compatible with everything, all smart TVs, and
everyone knows that language. You know, like plugging in something to your TV isn't everybody's language. You know what I mean?
Listen,
oh my gosh.
So Jimmy here,
Jimmy Ryan has shown up.
Jimmy was telling me he's very upset that we're all making fun of him. All right, he's a human being just like the rest of us.
I don't know,
and he just wants a fair. He wants everything to just be a level playing field, all right? Microsoft.
I'm so creeped out by that picture right now.
Me too. It's very unsettling.
Microsoft
he looks like a dad who sends his food back at every restaurant he goes to.
He looks like a Gleason brother that didn't go into acting.
see, he's crying right now. I know he's smiling on the outside, but right now he's crying. All right.
No,
you
he
guys
looks
are-
like the guy who's sitting at the kitchen island To Catch a Predator when the guy walks out and goes, "Hey, what are you doing here?"
Yeah. Oh,
What are you doing here?
Jimmy was supposed to be here.
Listen, he just wants a little bit more money. Microsoft has all the money. He wants a little bit more money. That's
my
all. He just
God.
wants some money, guys. So.
Yeah.
So that's all. He just
I'm
wanted.
still hung up on the he's a human being thing.
Yeah,
That's
Jim,
the thing that
It's time for you to go away, Jimmy. See you,
Okay.
Jim.
All right. Bye, Jimmy.
Also, Phil Spencer, speaking of apps, he did say that Xbox, basically, they have to be relevant on mobile, is kind of what the quote was all about. I did read about this where he was talking about that they can't pretend like mobile isn't like the biggest platform and Xbox needs to have a presence there. And then he referenced the Activision acquisition
my favorite.
as being like a big part of that because of Candy Crush. And
Yeah.
it wasn't so much about Call of Duty, it was more about
Yep.
their mobile
He
stuff.
literally said this acquisition. It's not really about Call of Duty. It's really about Candy Crush. And you know what? On paper, he's actually right, but
Money-wise.
Yeah.
If it were really about that, he would have come out swinging with that weeks ago. Like, you guys, it's really about Candy Crush. You know, like this seems like a total afterthought.
Yeah, it is
a really
kinda
smart
wild.
one.
The
A
first time
really
we're
smart
here-
one, mind you.
Dude, the
First time
light
we're
bulb,
hearing this,
the light
yeah.
bulb going.
Yeah. So this
That's funny.
does feel like the thing that you're trying to say. Well, obviously this, like when it wasn't that at
Yeah.
all before.
No, it wasn't.
does-
Like, does
it does
anyone
feel like
really play? I mean, I know people do, but I mean, when was the last time anyone uttered the word candy? Like Kyle, I haven't heard somebody say Candy Crush in like I don't even know.
I haven't either. That game's making like $1 million a month or whatever a day or something.
Yeah, it's so dumb.
It's,
How much?
it's
And
doing
Diablo
it's
Immortal
doing
too is
just
right. It's
fine.
still making
Mhm. Yeah,
gangbusters
yeah.
in microtransactions.
All of those
Which
games,
you don't.
man.
I don't even hear about that game at all.
Any
either.
kind of match 3 game that just gives a little and then just asks for a little bit back and then give like my
Yeah.
wife gets hooked on those kind of games. She played Candy Crush for a long time. She plays
They're
now.
literally
She plays this one
designed
now
to
called
hook
like
you.
Gardenscapes where you can like grow your garden and get pets, but then you do a match
Sure.
3 puzzle game for a while and you go
Sure.
back and do the gardening
Yeah.
and the pets.
Yeah. And then you get to a point where you can't do any of that anymore quickly.
What do
so
you mean I have to cool
pay up,
down
you know?
for 45
Yeah,
minutes?
and every
I
once
can't
in a
cool
while,
down.
every once in a while, I'm like, did you just spend like $3.99 on Apple for something? Because it just popped up on my notification here. She's like, maybe.
I needed more farm stuff
Yeah.
for my pretend
I
farm.
needed more farm gems or whatever. Listen, I have no room to talk. I buy so many stinking video games. So
I've bought
I've
like costumes for characters before. I get it. You know.
yeah, I have no room to talk.
And the same thing.
So that was some Sony news, some Xbox news. For Nintendo, the only news I had was that Nintendo needs to release an upgraded version of Switch because their hardware is super old. That's my only
Right.
breaking news.
And you put it
for
as
Nintendo.
breaking. Yeah, that's
Breaking news. Breaking news.
kind of like people
so
do on Twitter when they're like breaking. Pay attention to this.
Tim
tweet."
has his bot programs readied up already for the new
Yeah.
Switch.
So Tim, do you have news about the Super Switch? Are we bringing up the Super Switch again or Switch?
No, we'll talk about Super Switch later. We'll get to that later. Yeah.
I feel like it comes up every year around this time. They'll be like that Switch Pro. It's right around the corner, and I'm like, you guys, no one's making anything right now.
No,
You know, this and I agree with you. They need to make
they
something.
need to, but
like,
they're not going to anytime
They're not
soon.
going to with these sales figures, man. Absolutely not.
But circling back to Pokemon though, like you're right. Like Xenoblade is clearly like the blueprint of how to do that on something like the Switch. It is possible.
Tell you though, I'll
Breath
tell you
of
what, though,
the
man,
Wild.
Breath
if
of the
Tears-
Wild
but if
came out
Tears of the
7
Kingdom,
years ago.
Yes.
what if
and-
Tears of the Kingdom comes out with performance issues like Pokemon?
Yeah,
Could you
I
imagine?
feel like that would be the
Good.
last straw for a lot
But
of
there's
people.
way
if it
more.
did.
There's way more going on in that game for sure. Like
I know. So what if it comes out
Yeah.
with issues that
What if
Pokemon
there's
have?
issues? Yeah. What if there are
Whoa.
issues? What if that's what's been
Um,
taking so long? You
well,
know.
Right, but what I'm saying is, to me, like for me personally, I would be like, oh, well, that is frustrating. I would excuse it more versus Pokemon. There's less going on in
Oh, I see.
Pokemon to excuse the jank than there is with.
I want to live in a world where I'm excusing any blemishes.
No,
on
of course,
something.
no, of course.
You know,
Never-
like
never
you're playing Ocarina of Time right now. Can you imagine if that game needed a day one update? You know, when it came out, and you could never get one, so it was just broken forever. Like, no,
of course.
Ocarina of Time came out perfectly. You know, and like,
Oh,
when
of
it came
course.
out, that was the version you had, and that was it. You know, and
Yeah.
I know now I sound like the old guy of the podcast. Like back in my day, they completed their games when they came.
Yes.
Don't care. I like.
No,
that we
they
live in a
actually
world where you can
didn't, though.
update.
There was a lot of games that came out broken and
They
not
did,
done.
and that was it.
There was
You were stuck with it.
one of the more famous ones on PlayStation 1 was Xenogears. That game was famously not quite ready, but they released it anyway, and the ending was like,
right?
oh, what? This is the end of the game. All right. Okay.
Yeah.
But they had a deadline to hit, so they did, and there was no way to update it. Like, I guess that's it. Let's just push it out.
They just kept on releasing games and running out of money in that budget. It's
great.
It was really sad. Yeah.
Good job,
I like those games, but boy, that diminishing returns with that series.
Well done, everyone. All right, any other news that jumps out at you guys that you want to highlight? There's been other stuff this week.
I have to mention one that is exceptionally hilarious to me. It's that back in the day when GTA 3 was really successful, like just everybody was talking about it and playing it. A movie studio called somebody at Rockstar, and Dan Houser was in the room, and they were like, "We want to make a GTA movie. Tony Scott's going to direct, and Eminem is going to star. Of all people, Eminem is going to star." And they didn't even hesitate. The guy who answered the phone just said, "Do you want to make this?" And you just said no. There was like no hesitation.
To Creative style, no.
Wow. Oh, man. Just imagine that Eminem, I'm going to go over here in the Rubicon. I'm a rapper.
I don't want to live in that alternate universe.
Yeah, same here.
I don't know about all that.
Well, I don't know about all that.
I don't know about
that. It is worth noting that Dead Island 2 has been bumped back a couple months, February 3rd back to April 28th.
Who saw that coming, though? That's crazy.
Everybody.
Thanks, Kyle.
Thanks, Kyle. I forgot.
You know, that does
you approve those.
That is one less February game, which is good. That month.
Yeah, and I'm not rooting
we had no
against
April
that game.
games.
It's just like any game that like comes out over the course of 10 years, like even Cyberpunk, which I love, like had some issues. You know, it's never gonna be a good story. You know what I mean?
Final Fantasy 15.
Final Fantasy 15, like not going down in history as the greatest Final Fantasy of all time.
No, it's not. You know, and I get the feeling this game will also end up being, all respect to Dying Light, but like Dying Light 2, where it's like, this is a really fun game in some ways, but also it's got some drawbacks. Like, it's certainly.
I was so excited for that game, and it was so broken. That was the most broken game I played in the last 10 years. Like,
yeah,
that's disappointing.
Yeah. So I think it's going to be somewhere in that kind of Summon and Sevens range. I could be wrong, but that's what it's
I
going
think
to
you're
like.
right. I think you're right.
I honestly hope there is an element of jank in Dead Island 2. And it's a weird thing to ask for.
It's part of the fun.
But
but
so
like the fun jank, not the I get stuck behind locked doors jank. You know?
Not
like ragdoll, like the body flying off
they flip around like on themselves.
Like stupid jank. That's almost like on purpose.
Yeah.
I'm here for that too. I'm with you. All right, well, let's wrap things up with stuff we're watching. There's been some a couple new movies released. I'd want to catch up on one that I finally watched as well, but I want to hear about The Menu. That movie looks wacky.
Yeah,
I've seen it advertised nuts. A bunch. Is it as nuts as the trailers look?
Yes, and I'm almost like a little bummed that the trailers showed as much as they did, to some extent, because you don't really. It's not like they reveal any of the plan from the movie in the trailers, but the trailers do allude to some violence happening, and I wish they didn't. You know what I mean? Like, I wish you were able to go into the movie and go, "Whoa, I didn't know that was gonna happen." Like, I wish there was more of that.
They should have taken it off the menu.
I don't know. That's what she said. I don't know.
Good cast in this movie.
No time, but she did. No time.
Great cast. This is Ralph Fiennes being yet another complex yet captivating villain. And he's just incredible in this. And then Anya Taylor-Joy plays the lead, who is like kind of like the only person there, not the only person, but the one who's like there without knowing what she signed up for, whereas everybody else knows who this chef is, knows that it's going to be some weird up its own ass menu, like that it's going to be super convoluted. They expect this, but she's going in there going, "What the hell is all this?" To the point where even Ralph Fiennes' character is like, "You shouldn't be here," and stuff like that, because they intricately planned out the meals and personally, like to each person that's there. So her journey is really fun to watch. Nicholas Hoult is so funny in this movie. He between this and that show The Great that's on Hulu, which he's really funny in that too. He just needs to be a comedic actor from now on. Like, he's so fun. He plays a fanboy of Ralph Fiennes' character. So even if it's the craziest thing you've ever seen in person, he's still like, "This food, This food's so good. Like
You know,
it
he
doesn't
was
matter
actually
what's
funny
happening
in that-
around him.
The movie's not great, but there's a movie where he's a zombie who falls in love with the girl.
Yeah.
Oh, you didn't
He
like
was-
that?
That was
I like that
endearing.
movie.
That was endearing.
The
Yeah.
movie was fine. I don't think it was great, but the movie was. I thought he was really good in it. I thought he
Yeah.
just did a
Warm
really
Bodies.
good
He's
job.
great in Mad
I
Max.
really like that movie actually.
Mad Max, yeah.
Oh yeah.
Wonderful in
I
that
forgot-
movie, yeah.
Oh yeah,
He's
Wonderful Day.
Witness
That guy.
me!
He's good. Good actor.
He's really good. Yeah, he can be a chameleon and he can do like just the whatever they needed him to do as Beast, that
Beast,
boring
yeah, I
nerd
forgot he was
stuff.
Beast. Yeah, he was
And he
Beast.
can do really zany, weird comedy. Like he is the comedic backbone almost in this movie. He's pretty despicable. As the movie goes on, you find out all these things about the people that are at this kitchen, whatever, being served. That you're like, oh no! Like I mean, it's just things unfold so quickly and unpredictably that you're like, oh no, this is bad. Please stop. It's a dark, very, very dark sense of humor though. Like even if it's like a really, really, really like messed up meal that they're serving, they'll still have like kind of like a food show. They'll still have like, here's a picture of the food in a very pretty sense, and then it'll have the ingredients up here, even if it's messed up ingredients. It'll be like really pretty. Like it's so funny how they go the
Baby's
extra
toes.
mile with some of the food show references. But there's a whole, this movie's a whole metaphor about like creator culture and fanboys and stuff. Like there's a whole commentary about that happening that you can assign to food, or you can assign to about like movies or gaming or whatever. Like,
Anything.
yeah, pretty much. It's good, man. It's layered and it's messed up. And if you like dark comedy, especially, I mean, you're really gonna like it, for sure.
Okay.
Who directed this? Do you know?
Mark Milode.
Because I know you're usually pretty good about knowing.
He I can't remember. He did that Brad Pitt war movie on Netflix that was like a satire. What was that called? War Machine, I think.
Oh, that sounds familiar. That sounds familiar.
I think he did The Rover too, and that movie is effing brilliant. I can't remember what else he's done, but he's like a South African actor or director.
Does it have a Knives Out vibe to it at all? It's kind of like the dark but humorous. Or
It's
is it
even darker. It's even darker.
darker?
Knives Out is definitely designed to appeal to more people.
Okay.
Oh, I guess apparently he only did TV before this movie.
Yeah, Mark Mylode.
I guess I'm confusing him with somebody else.
Ollie
but,
G. He was involved with Ollie G.
But he did
Love
mostly.
Ollie G.
Yeah, he did mostly.
Kyle's like, I'm in now.
I'm back in. Yeah.
He's a Succession director for the most part. That's his
Okay.
claim to fame, and Shameless apparently.
Interesting.
Nice.
Before that show fell off the rails.
All right, so The Menu, which is just in theaters right now, right? It's not
Just in
streaming.
theaters for now, yeah.
Okay.
But there is one that's streaming, and it's on Apple. It's Spirited, the Ryan Reynolds, Will Ferrell,
Yep, the Christmas
Christmas
one.
Carol.
Yeah.
Oh,
Okay.
okay.
It's a musical.
Oh, is that out? Okay.
Yeah, it's out. But it's actually kind of a refreshing take on the Christmas Carol story, because it's like it's almost like A Christmas Carol is like a prequel to this movie in a sense. They just the way they map out certain characters and how they explain the story and stuff. And you're more following the ghost side of it. Like Will Ferrell works as a ghost with Christmas Past, and they follow him at the company where they concoct who they're gonna haunt that year. So I thought that was an interesting take on it. It's just the musical side. Why was it a musical? Like it actually would have been way better if it wasn't.
Sure.
It was like
it
distracted from like good plot points when they were like, I'm gonna bust out in song. I'm like, damn it. I was actually just getting in the rhythm of what you were doing.
Yeah, I personally I just don't like musicals. So when that happens, I'm like, all right, well now we're
I
just
understand.
some cartoon
I'm very
nonsense,
picky
bro.
about musicals myself. Like Les Mis, they sing the entire freaking thing, and it's annoying.
But that's the point of that, though,
You
right?
know?
That's literally what that is. So
yeah, but I mean, I'm just saying I'm picky about those.
Yeah.
So if I don't know, if the movie had been about music, I would have liked it more as a musical. Like La La Land is about music, you know. That's why I love that musical. But this one, the music is actually it's written. The songs are written by the same guys that wrote the vocal melodies and lyrics for La La Land. And they wrote the Greatest Showman songs too. So it's like the poppy Broadway type sound.
Yeah.
And they're competent songwriters. You know, they're making bank whenever they're hired. Like, I mean, they are the go-to guys for, we're going to do a musical and we want it to be pop, kind of. Oh, okay. Well, let's hire these guys and give them billions of dollars. But yeah, it is entertaining, and Ryan Reynolds is doing his Ryan Reynolds thing And Will Ferrell is doing his Will Ferrell thing. So I mean, if you like what
That's a
those
good
guys
mix.
do,
I do. I like both those
you're
guys.
going to enjoy your time with the movie for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, they can be exhausting too much of either of them after a while. Like,
Yeah.
but I like them both a lot.
I wouldn't do
Yeah.
a double feature, you know. But
I wouldn't do
Right,
double feature.
right.
Yeah.
But them together, honestly, it makes sense. They
Yeah,
had
no,
good
I'm on
chemistry.
board with that. I'm on board with that. We did watch totally family focused here, but the Disenchanted, the follow up to
I haven't watched it yet.
15 years
Oh,
ago was Enchanted
yep.
with Amy Adams and
Love that
Patrick.
first movie. Yeah.
It was a really fun, like not tongue in cheek, but like kind of wink, nudge. I don't know how to put it, but it was basically just a fun little like, hey, remember all the fairy tale fantasy Disney stuff? We're gonna take all those tropes and kind of put them in modern day at the time, New York City, and see how they would survive there. So that was kind of the core concept, but they turned it into a very nice, still very Disney tropey story. And the way it all wrapped up was, a perfect bow. But it was super fun, super clever, great cast, and my daughter and I loved watching. We actually watched them back to back over this weekend. The first
cool.
and second one.
Those
So-
have got to be like a weird one to watch back because it's like you said, it's
It's a big
15
time
years
jump.
ago. That's a huge
But
time
I
jump.
liked it. I thought Maya Rudolph did a good job. I mean, it's more of the first one. So like,
Okay.
is it doesn't have that same magic. It's the same thing with any sequel, game or movie. Like it's a struggle to capture that same magic. It really
It
is.
Not
So
unless it's like a Fury Road thing where you change the entire thing, like the entirety
Yes.
of what the franchise
good
was,
point.
basically.
Right.
You know.
no, and this is just another. They do a good job. They do a good job with it, but it's another
Good.
version of what you saw with Enchanted. Like, and
Yeah.
so with Enchanted, there were lots of kind of like surprises. Like if they did Chippendale 2, the Rescue Rangers, if they did a Chippendale's Rescue Rangers 2, I don't think it'd be hard for them to make it quite as like, whoa, that was surprisingly good. Like I didn't expect them to do all these things.
Yeah.
And it would be hard to make a sequel. And same with Enchanted, it was tough to
I
make.
forgot that
That's,
even came out.
Yeah,
It is a little disappointing that it is more of the same. Not that I didn't want more of the same, but I wanted the story to be at least a little. I don't know.
No, they do
I need
a
to see
good
it,
job
though.
with the story. Like it's one
Okay.
of those things where like, oh, okay, I see how they did this, and I like what they did with the story. The trailer
okay.
kind of tells most of the story, by the way. So if you've
Yeah,
seen
I was
the
gonna
summer-
say.
Then dang
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
Then I
Trailer
already
tells
saw
most.
it.
Gee, what a surprise.
Well,
That's how Disney movies go.
I remember watching Enchanted. Like this is when I lived with my parents, and we still saw movies together. We just saw Enchanted on a whim. We were just like, let's just go see that. We haven't had a movie night in forever, and we loved the hell out of it
It
when
was
we
one
saw
of
it.
Amy Adams' best
could not
performances, weirdly
believe-
enough. Like
yeah.
she really
Shout out to
does
Amy
a good
Adams.
job.
Yeah, she was so great, and then James Marsden was so effing funny in that
So
movie.
funny. Yeah.
And my understanding is he's barely in Disenchanted, and I'm like,
Right.
oh, that's disappointing, because
really?
he was like the best part of the first one.
Yeah.
No,
No, it's really Amy Adams centric, and a few other characters too, some new characters too.
cool.
So I liked it. I thought it was good.
I'll see it.
Um,
Disney Plus. Why not?
And speaking of Disney, I watched Thor: Love and Thunder, and
Oh, there you go.
it was good, a good movie. It was fun. I had a good time with it. Like I know there are people who hate it and there are people who love it, and I'm like, what if I just thought it was good and I liked it? Is that okay? Can I think like that was good?
No,
No, you
it's
have
not.
to love
It's not.
all things Marvel or hate them.
Or hate them? I don't, and that's kind of been the story of this phase of Marvel for me as I've caught up. There's been some
It's been
things
that
that
way
I
for everybody is that it feels like a very now everyone's even calling it like it's got phase 4 vibes, you know, like now it's even become a joke on itself, you know.
And when I watch Black Panther, that's kind of what I've heard about that too. Is like, yeah, it's good. It's like another
It's good.
phase
Yeah,
4 movie.
It's good.
Yeah.
So but I don't want to diminish it. Like I know it's one of those things where it's like I recognize a ton of work and effort went into that, and people really gave it their all. I totally understand that, but I do see them still struggling to totally find what the footing is moving forward after Endgame. Like there's still that little bit of we're not sure exactly what we're doing, but we're going to tell some interesting stories with some really great characters along the way. And that's what
I
Love
think
and
like
Thunder
they
was.
know where they want to be, but they don't know how to get there. Is kind of what this whole phase
could be
felt
right.
like.
Yeah.
It's like we know exactly where we want to be, but like getting there.
Yeah.
Like
Well,
Yeah,
I
it's
wonder.
not as easy to be like. It's not as easy as an Infinity War story where it's like, well, that revolved around like 6 stones, so it's easy to just throw a stone in a movie or whatever on occasion.
Right.
Whereas this
got-
is like, well, it's multiverse, so it's a little more
Yeah.
abstract. You know?
So you need literal actual human beings as these characters with all these different universes, like, and they're not going to stick around nearly as long, right? Because I mean, maybe they die sooner than you think because it's like they're from this other universe, and we can't just have them sitting around for 20 movies, like.
Yeah.
So
So I thought it was good. I thought that Russell Crowe and Christian Bale were standouts. They were both excellent.
Definitely.
Russell Crowe. I forgot.
I think Russell Crowe probably had the most fun I've ever seen him have. Like
It's
It's
maybe
been a while.
outside
It's been a
of
minute. I feel
yeah,
like he's
maybe
having more
outside of the
fun at
other
this point.
guys.
Yeah.
Like in the other guys, he was
Or the
really
nice guys, yeah.
nice
Yeah.
guys.
Nice
Excuse
guys,
me.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he
Oh my
he
god!
was great.
When his wife, oh my god, that take in The Nice Guys where he's like, "I'm sleeping with your brother" or something, and the way he spits out his water, like it's just one of the best spit takes I've ever seen in a modern movie. It's
He
so
can
good.
be fun, you know.
Yeah, he clearly had fun with this. He was doing, as I described it to Jeff and to Kyle, I think, as like an SNL sketch version of a Greek accent for Zeus.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
and it
He
worked.
didn't have
It
to do
worked great.
anything, and he's like, "I think I'm gonna take a shot at it."
Yeah.
And it was great. And then I've never seen Christian Bale phone it in, man, and he didn't for this either. Like right from the
No.
opening shot where it's him,
he
Right.
just
Right,
doesn't know
right
how to
away.
just show up. Like he's just gonna show
Yeah.
up and be like at 10.
which I realize can be a problem on set apparently when he screams at people.
Oh,
But
you
other
come
than
in
that,
here like, "Ah-ta-da, look, good for you."
but good for you. But anyway,
And the
I thought
streets.
it was fun. Listen, if like we're not doing a deep dive on this movie that was from this past summer, but there are plenty of things you could nitpick about really every movie, but this one too, it certainly has its moments, and I'm like, well, a lot of these jokes were reaching or whatever. Like there's lots you can go into to criticize it, but as a whole, as an overall movie, I thought it was fun, and yeah, I thought it was good. I thought it was
Yeah.
good.
Shout out to Hemsworth though, especially with apparently he has like Alzheimer's stuff going on, which is like totally.
Well,
I don't know if that's ever
He
been
has
brought up.
potential, like a higher potential than usual because
Yeah.
of some.
His genetic makeup is
Yeah.
like, very open, to
Like, hey,
to-
you're gonna probably get
you're
this.
most
Susceptible.
likely gonna get it.
I didn't.
He's very
I didn't
susceptible.
realize that you can actually see him get told that on camera. He filmed
Yeah,
a
they, on
documentary.
that show Limitless.
really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that. So like,
that's where he learned it, and they recorded it and everything. So
yeah.
Crazy.
And they were like, and he was like, okay, so what does that mean? Like, it could just be like, oh, you have a 5% more chance. It doesn't, which isn't a big deal. But then the guy was like, no, you have an 8 to 10 times more chance than a regular like person in the population would. Like,
Can you cut the camera? Yeah,
Yeah,
like
for
that's
real.
that's horrible to
Yeah,
learn that
that's
like
rough.
on a show that you just kind of like got casted on. So
yeah.
It's rough.
That really sucks because
Yeah,
he's.
so
he
shout
seems
out to
like-
him. He seems like a good person. We don't know
He
for
seems
sure.
like- yeah, I know. You
We don't
really
know.
Yeah.
It's the
You
same with
never
like a
know,
Hugh
but-
Jackman. It's like he seems like one of the nicest people alive. He could be a psychopath. I have no idea.
he
Right.
could kick puppies. You don't know.
He might.
I mean, have you seen Logan? I mean, come on, he's just tearing dudes up.
I've
You know,
seen
like
him yell at kids before.
Certain people you feel like you know who they are based on like I saw him in an interview. It's like, did you though?
Yeah.
Or was
Yeah,
that-
yeah. You
Tom
saw the
Hanks has had
actor
that-
on an interview. Get out of
Tom
here.
Hanks has had that
Get outta
personality
here.
for decades of being like, oh, he's America's sweetheart, everybody's favorite dad or whatever. Like, it's just like,
Sure.
you don't know. He's probably
Yeah.
murdering people, and that's why he's so happy.
Like the only
That's why he's
Hollywood
so
people I think we definitely know are going to be guys like Harrison Ford, who is like unapologetically grumpy. Like
Yeah.
he
Yeah,
just
Sure.
right,
Right.
right.
he
Sure.
just is, and it's like I think that's who he really is,
That's
and
who
I
he
I
is, for
appreciate that
sure.
about him for sure.
He is
Anyway,
like when you ask him, I love
Callista,
when he gets. I
Callista.
love when he gets. He gets in an interview with a nerd, a Star Wars nerd, and they're like, "So did Greedo shoot first, or did you shoot?" And he's like, "I don't care." Like it's
Yeah.
just, I love that stuff.
No, I like it when he. I like
he
when
doesn't
he
even
feigns
say I
ig-
don't know.
When
I
he
don't-
feigns ignorance and he's like, I don't know what that is. That's my favorite. Like, Harrison Ford, were you a Force ghost in episode 9? I don't know what a Force ghost is, and he just storms off.
He just
So
doesn't
good.
give an
You're in
F.
the
He
movie.
gives, he
Yeah.
gives no Fs.
time. He's got no
Yeah.
time for it, man.
No,
So-
he
But
doesn't.
then sometimes he has fun with it, like with Jimmy Kimmel's whole bit with Chewbacca being in the crowd. Was it
Yes,
Jimmy
yeah,
Jimmy
yeah,
Kimmel,
yeah.
I think?
yeah.
And then
Or,
Harrison
He
Ford's
knows how
mad
to
at
play
him.
the game.
Yeah,
He knows how
he's-
to play the game. Then he knows
Or
when
like
he doesn't
on
have to play
Conan.
it either.
When he was on Conan and what's his Shalansky, when he has the Lego
Millennium Falcon.
Millennium
Yeah,
Falcon,
yeah,
and he
yeah,
like
yeah.
hands it to him, and he like
Jordan
obviously it's a whole
Schlansky
bit.
really handed him the. Oh,
Like
are
a
you
Lego
serious? I don't
Yeah,
remember
yeah.
this.
Yeah,
Wow.
it's yeah, it's
You
like
don't
a,
remember
it's
this
a
bit? And he dropped dropped it, right?
yeah, he
Like-
drops it. That's
He
the
like-
whole bit. Yeah, he
whoa, whoa.
drops it because Jordan Solansky is all super into Star Wars or whatever, and
Yeah.
yeah, he hands up the Lego Millennium Falcon that he built, and Harrison Ford like
Harrison
drops it and
drops
just
So funny.
shatters.
It's pretty funny.
And
It's
Schlansky
Yeah.
can hold a serious, like he's hard to
Dude.
break, so he probably was just staring at it, doing like a 1,000-yard stare, just staring at it. Like
Conan
just
and
watch somebody get
Shalansky together
murdered.
is like some of the
It's the
best stuff
best.
in the world.
when they
It's
go
the
on the road
best.
together, it's just amazing. It's
The
just the best.
best. Yeah.
I will say about Love and Thunder, I'm not a hater. I'm in the middle, kind of like you, Tim. Like I enjoyed it more than.
Yeah.
It's like it's a little more than just okay for me. Like there
That's
are more
kind of
enjoyable
exactly
moments
where
in
I
it.
am. Yeah.
But sometimes the jokes was like, all right, you're going a little too hard on the joke territory. Rein it in a little bit. And I wish they had more moments like that gray planet, whatever. I wish they had more visual moments like that. Because that was amazing.
It's funny because the Marvel movies and the new Ant-Man trailer has proven this as well. They're all kind of falling into the same like Trapper Keeper aesthetic, like from the 90s.
Yeah. That new Ant-Man trailer too.
Yeah,
is like,
and so
like, I had that Trapper Keeper.
It's like they all were like, "Oh, Guardians did a cool visual thing. Let's all do that for all of our movies." So like, but I don't hate it.
That's what the Cosmos. Like, well, I mean, everything's so cosmic now. It's like we have to like have this similar. Cosmic style or whatever, which like again I don't hate, but everything kind of feels
the whole Shadow Planet
feels
was
very
just
samey,
like visually striking, and I just
absolutely.
Yeah, we were sucking away all that like flourish and everything like
that. But then they would bring back color for certain things, like she lights up Mjolnir to be able to see, and it was just like this is cool. Like that was cool.
It's
like
cool.
Feels and looks distinct, right?
Very distinct.
Because it's like it's black and white, but so you would think like you wouldn't see a lot of it, but like it's you actually are seeing a lot of the action. Like it's distinct enough where you're like actually still seeing what's happening in that moment. It's pretty amazing.
So anyway, overall I liked it. I think sometimes when you make characters try to be too smarmy, too silly, too ignorant, and they did this to Thor by accident at the beginning where he was almost unlikable in the first act because he was so out of touch and like oblivious to what's going on around him. I'm like, I see what you're doing and it is funny, but it's making him almost unlikable because
he already had an arc where he was unlikable.
He already had an arc, right?
So why are we doing that again?
So
basically?
that things like that, or like Tessa Thompson's character, who at times is so cool and likable, and at other times I'm like, is she just trying to be standoffish and a jerk to every like? And it would seem like it was out of nowhere. So character inconsistency was probably the biggest weak point for me in this one.
Totally
but
fair.
by the time it wrapped up, I thought it was really.
And you know what? The way that what you mentioned that about Thor too, where he's like a little bit unlikable, you don't really see as much of a journey for him being not unlikable anymore. He just suddenly realizes he has a different set of responsibilities now.
Yeah, he just has as things about other characters are revealed to him, he kind of gets more serious, and then it's like, okay, we're back to normal Thor again. But part of me during that opening, I'm like, did he not just go through Infinity War and Endgame and in his own movies where he kind of has these arcs? And I don't know. So anyway, that's
like
fine.
Lingering, like almost like PTSD from like Infinity War or something like that. He's
it's
just
almost like he got dumb again. It was weird. It was just a little weird at the beginning. But it was funny. Don't get me wrong.
A little too much like his What If counterpart, where that's like a party animal.
Like a little bro.
Which was very entertaining.
It reminded me of the Web Shorts where he's a bad roommate to that one guy. Like
and actually that is the Thor that you're getting in this movie is roommate Thor.
Where he's very oblivious and it's very funny. Like he'll leave you're like sitting on the toilet and the guy can't get to the bathroom. Stuff like that. Like
that's good.
It's that kind of humor.
It's funny.
I love that they put that character, his roommate, in the movie. By the way,
Same here. And his name is Daryl too, but it's not like
a background
guy
like,
or anything.
But he's like a tour guide or something.
So
funny.
So anyway, I do think it's okay to have nuance when you think about these movies. Some people really do like the hate or love, and that's the only options. And
I can't stand when people get really, really high and mighty if you have a negative opinion about a movie like Black Panther, which is very important to some people, I guess, which is fine if it's important to you for identity purposes. That's fine. But like to just be like, well, then you're not allowed to criticize it. It's so frustrating to me.
Oh, like, I agree with you there.
I'm not allowed to say, oh, there might be pacing issues just because I'm white or something. That's really weird,
dude.
To me.
I'm so glad you said that because, and I know you
like,
guys were just busting my balls, and I get it. But when I was saying Miss Marvel and She-Hulk just aren't doing it for me, and I watched the second episode of each, by the way, and I will watch them, but like they're not my thing. And I know you're busting my balls for them. I get from busting my balls about it. I get it, but you don't actually think it's because you just don't like female main characters. You are. Thankfully, I think you guys are smart enough to know, like, those show vibes are way different than other Marvel stuff. So, like,
they really are.
Yeah, if you're there for something, that's not the vibe that's been around.
But it's not because I don't like female lead characters, people. Okay.
Well, funny enough, though, everyone hated Brie Larson as Miss Marvel because she's all like a strong woman. She's a strong woman.
That's not why I didn't think she was great. I thought she was a little bland. But I do like her. I think she's good as Miss Marvel. I just don't think she's great.
shown that she's a great actress.
She said,
Not
Dude,
in
I don't
those
know.
movies.
in those
but
in that role,
outside of
she's,
those
in that
movies.
role, she's pretty bland. Like those
Yeah.
meaningful moments in Miss Marvel.
Well, and
Like
people.
it's just she struggles to really. It's almost like she needed 3 or 4 more takes to really get into the moment because she just wasn't in the
Or
moment.
just maybe just had bad directing and stage notes
Could have
altogether.
been.
You know,
Yeah.
yeah, where the guy just wasn't asking it because they shoot
That-
these things out of order, and
Yeah.
if you don't have a good director who's kind of keeping your like aimed in the right direction, then like now
Well,
you
she
just kind of come
filmed
off as like a
she
weirdo.
filmed Endgame and all that stuff like way before Captain Marvel solo movie, like a year before it, and then they did post production for like a year.
Oh,
So,
Captain
like,
Marvel. I kept saying Miss Marvel. Captain Marvel.
So
yeah.
like she did all of her Endgame stuff where they didn't even know who that character was yet. They just knew that she was powerful, and that's it.
Well, also too, she's supposed to. Yeah, she ends up
it's just
having to be
weird.
the strongest hero in that sort of arc, right? The Infinity arc, and it's like that's towards the end. Suddenly, it's like, oh, the most powerful character. Here we go. We're slapping it towards the end here instead of like having room to breathe with her. Like if they started like maybe in phase 2 or
Man,
something.
I really do wish she was on that trek with them and time traveling. Like then we would have seen some actual depth for that character. Like
I think so too. Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah.
But that's the problem with too powerful heroes. Like you have to remove them from the equation.
Yeah,
like,
yeah. One and there was a lot of fan backlash too, just with her and everything like that, because that's just how fans are. So like, I wonder how much of that was influenced. Probably not much at all, because all this stuff is already mapped out and everything like that. But like, is there a world where she was such a loved character from the first movie, where she has her own next movie where it's just her and she's not sharing the screen with 17 other Marvel characters? Or it's really interesting to see. I don't know how all that stuff shakes out, because reception is everything.
Reception is
not
first. Dude,
if it's
first
not received
impressions,
well, people are hesitant to want to overuse that character, use them in solo ways and stuff.
First impressions make a huge difference, man. Like when you introduced Guardians of the Galaxy, the reason why I think that did so well personally is because I think they made them. It was an undeniably good film with really compelling characters that were funny and interesting and fun. So you have to, I know this sounds really stupid. It's like a TED Talk or something, but you have to be undeniable. If you're trying to introduce a new thing and get everyone bought in, you got to make it undeniable. And her performance and that script and just that overall movie just wasn't undeniably good, where it's like, whoa, new era of Marvel.
It felt like an MCU roadmap movie where they're like, okay, we said we have to do this movie, so we should do this movie.
Oops, we put this character in too soon. We have to make a...
But it has to be undeniably good. It just does. And
I feel like the next movie she's going to be in has a better shot at being like a more well-rounded movie. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Because it's being described as like a I forget the words, but basically it's more like a Ocean's 11 type vibe where
it's like
her
she's
being
training,
silly
right?
with different characters and stuff.
Isn't it like she's also training a whole squad of Marvel, like
pretty much
Miss Marvels or whatever?
You know what movie she would have fit in really well in terms of the way she performed and her character's powers too was the Eternals. Like she felt to me like she feels to me like one of those characters that are like they don't feel totally ready yet. It's almost like this is a first draft of who these characters are supposed to be, and the actors weren't totally prepped on how they're supposed to do this scene. Like to me, she fits in on that level with the Eternals. So anyway,
I read somewhere on like somebody that's like a scoopster that drops all these scoops and nuggets said that there's going to be another Eternals movie before Secret Wars comes out, and I'm like, okay, dude.
I cannot wait for Harry Styles. I'll tell you what.
Yeah. Formerly Mr.
Spoilers for that movie, I guess.
Yeah, I guess.
It's sure, yeah. Some character that I have no clue who that is. Like, I had to look it up. I was like, who is
Thanos' womanizing
that's Thanos' brother. How dare you?
How dare you, sir?
Oh, so sorry.
Yeah, Harry Styles in real life. In real life is Thanos' brother.
Yeah, in real life.
Because Thanos' last name was Styles.
Yep,
all right,
Thanos
so
Styles. Yeah.
On that note, there's no better way to end a podcast than to talk about Thanos Styles. Thank you guys. This was a good one. Next week, actually, probably not next week. Probably in 2 weeks, we'll do our predictions for Game Awards. So next week we'll continue to catch up on stuff we're playing. Maybe throw a quiz in there or something like that. But until then, enjoy your Thanksgivings for those of you who celebrate Thanksgiving, and we will see you next time.
Gobble gobble.
Stuffing.